I can't see you, Laura. Can you hear me?
Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to this week's Talking Stick Show. So I'd firstly like to welcome our new guest. Today we have Nicole DiCroce. Hello, Nikki.
Hi everyone.
And thanks for coming on. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Good, great for you to be here. And I'd like to welcome the pool of co-hosts. So I'll start with the Grandmaster of the Obvious. We have the Andrew Bartzis. Hello, brother.
Hello, how's it going, Dale? Everybody there? Can you hear me?
Maty Waller. So
I think Dale froze for a second. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here with you all. It's going to be a good show.
Hello. I think it froze for me a bit as well then. And we have the great David Ellis. Hello, David.
Hey, everyone. Nice to be here today.
And good to see you, brother. And we have the Amy Kruzik as well joining us. How are we doing, Amy?
Amy, you're muted.
Finally.
We've just got a bit of internet connection issue here, guys.
Yeah.
Is it frozen for anybody else? That?
Okay.
It
There we
keeps
go.
freezing. Yeah,
There we
Amy
go.
and I were in a
Okay.
room on our own.
Yeah.
You're in the room.
Eating lollipops.
So, guys, we've had a bit of technical difficulties today. We had to come out the room and start it again. So I appreciate everyone waiting for us. And so, hello, Laura, joining us.
Hi Dale. Hi everyone. Sorry, I didn't realise we were already live. Okay.
All right.
Oh, we lost our host.
And it's frozen, so Maty, you
We've
gotta
lost our host.
Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. Anyway, while Dale, we wait for Dale to return, I believe that David wanted to address something at the beginning of the show. So, David, why don't you just take us away?
Okay, so I want to thank you, first of all, the people at Two Feathers Medicine and Dale, for allowing Andrew and I to deal with an issue that has come up, and deal with it we shall. The issue deals with a disgraced employee of both Galactic Historian and Universal Citizen Media. Now, this individual has made some claims of whatever copyright infringement or whatever, and I need to clear the air where that is concerned in a way that is irrefutable. You see, unlike other people, I generally tend to come with receipts, right? So that we understand each other. Let's deal with the obvious claim. The claim was that GH and UCM stole a webinar of an individual. Let me tell you what the truth is. It's not his webinar to start with, okay? This webinar was part of an effort that UCM was making to make a set of webinars that are supposed to instruct people, right, on little aspects of spirituality. And I mean very slight aspects of spirituality. So we're running that webinar series right now. The material was created specifically to be given away free. The reason why it was not given away free, and I have to apologize to people like Amy, who actually paid for the webinar, was because the individual was in severe financial difficulty, okay? To the point where Andrew had to be giving him small pieces of work, and so did I, okay? So he monetized the webinar, which was supposed to be given away free, and I had no issues with that because he did not have heating in his house. I am being very clear, and I'm not leaving any stone unturned in this entire situation. This is what was told to me. This is what was told to Nicole in a business meeting. He was fired from both organizations, and I'll explain to you why. I'm not leaving any stone unturned, because this individual has made the mistake of trying to garner sympathy online from unsuspecting people who do not know, right? Better to wait until you hear the other side of the story before jumping to a conclusion. And so for the people out there who are sympathizing / supporting him, this will be the other side of the story, which we will be telling today. Except I will be telling it without any filter because everybody knows that's how David rolls. Okay?
Let me add something. For the people that don't understand what's going on, normally we don't do stuff. But when we get accused of what he's accused, we make a public response. And the reason the public response is because things have grown out of control. The vast majority of people in the audience have no idea what's going on. And only a small few are asking questions. And now we're publicly answering, and I let this answer stand, this question and this statement stand to move forward. So if you don't know about it, you're going to be informed in it here in just a matter of a few minutes. It
Mhm.
really has nothing to do with anybody else out there. But when somebody accuses us of theft, which has never happened ever, ever, we create our own materials, and David has receipts to show that process. So if you don't know what's going on, just sit back, relax. We're going to get through this in a couple minutes, and then we have a great show on psychospirituality for you.
Understood. So the individual in question, I'm not mentioning his name, I'm not going to give him that dignity, has gone on social media and made a 47 video accusing GH and UCM of theft. The materials that were used to make that webinar were UCM materials.
You created them, David.
I
You did the
created them.
videos.
I created them. Okay? The materials that you were given inside that webinar, I created them. These are the things that upset me. And between Andrew and myself, we've given this man an unbelievable amount of money for things that he did not deserve. And then he turns around and tries to foment this disharmony between people, which is what he does, which is what he's doing on social media now. I want to specifically address the people who are in his comments expressing sympathy to him. Once again, you guys are supposed to be spiritual people, and I don't want to call you out by name, but y'all know who y'all are. Okay? Y'all are supposed to be spiritual people. There are always three sides to a story. Well, this would be the other side. At least get 2/3 of the story, at least. So here's the issue that we have had and why he was fired. He was fired for many, many reasons. But one of the primary reasons he was fired for was his interaction with women online. You see, when somebody sees you as a spiritually accomplished person, you have a unique ability to try to manipulate them, if you can, by saying, I'm a spiritual person, I can teach you. It's arrogant. We've said this many times online, but this man falls into this arrogance. What happens with this man, unfortunately, is that he kept approaching women half his age to try to inveigle them into some sort of weird sexual whatever. And we got tired of it. We sat in business meetings, Nicole and myself, with this individual, where this individual was telling us how hard up he was and how much he needs a woman. As a spiritual person, I understand that path is lonely. Unless you're lucky like Amy to get married, you're not. There are going to be times when you're lonely, and we all know this. But being hard up is another thing. So he was actually approaching women online. UCM created a social media community where this individual was an administrator. We gave him the rights of administrator specifically because I can't be everywhere at the same time. He had approached a young lady using our materials, sacred materials, as some sort of quid pro quo to get into this young lady's pants. And as a result of that, that wasn't bad enough. He was rejected. And then he decides that he's going to be spiteful and vindictive to the young lady by first trashing her name, which is what he's doing to us, and then going into the community and throwing her out of the community because he had administrator rights. This is the individual that we are dealing with here, okay? So I know some of y'all are wondering, but it's still him that presented the material. I want to say something about, for those of you who don't know what Kujikiri is. There is no lineage in Kujikiri which he can claim. The closest he can claim, I am a martial artist. I don't usually give my credentials out online. I've been in martial arts since I was 7 years old. I have competed and won gold medals at the regional level. I've been studying traditional Japanese martial arts since I was 7 years old. I am a senior black belt and I've written a book on the subject. That is fact, that is verifiable. You can go research it. He does not have that lineage. He does not have the authority to do this, right? He is a presenter of information. And so he decided to monetize this webinar specifically because he was in a financial crunch, because Andrew, he came on a meeting with Andrew and myself, and he quit his job because he wanted to be all in to the spirituality. And Andrew has spoken many, many times about this kind of behavior, this irresponsible behavior.
So we told him not to quit his job, that
We
this
told
was
him not
a
to quit it.
part-time situation in which you guys were recording once a week.
Yes. We were recording once a week. Even the UCM VIP shows were done as a service to our viewers to give them information that they didn't have to pay thousands of dollars for. And so this is what we're talking about. This is the second part of the story. Okay. Here is the other part of it that, well, we pretty much got rid of him specifically because of his interactions with women. Being vindictive to women because they reject you is not a bad thing. Speaking about this webinar, once again, this was part of a series that was aimed to try to help the public. So now, he is claiming that there was a theft of material. That material was created for UCM for broadcast. Okay, he can't say, "Oh, don't air my webinar." And I know exactly why. Up until last night, I was wondering, why would he do that? Right? I was wondering, why would he do that? And then I realized that he wanted to remonetize the same information again at a higher rate. So I know some of you all in the chat are going to be like, "David, that doesn't sound right." Oh, really? Well, you see, I came with receipts. And I hope the internet connection holds up. I'm about to share my screen with you, and you can see somebody's website. Are there, Joel, can you put this on screen?
Well, that's going on. I just want to address one thing. Kujikiri and all the information that's in course can be found in Wikipedia.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Kujikiri initiation. There's no such thing as a Kujikiri initiation. And it's 2 hours and it's £500. This is how much he's charging for Kujikiri initiation, right? And Dragon Reiki obviously is £500 apparently as well. But let me come back to you guys. This is the kind of thing which we don't like having to do. We don't like having to out people like this. And I remained silent for months because, honestly speaking, I did not want to have to embarrass this individual with all the facts. But I see a whole bunch of people online. And Nikki can explain to you, because she was also on these calls with us, where all these things were happening, where we had to get him out of the community because he was creeping out the women in the community.
Classic toxic male personality.
He was creeping out the women in the community. We had to get him out of the community, and he responded very badly to it, very badly, and tried to foment discontent and bad feelings between people, which is neither here nor there. We gave man money because he was really, really, really in a bad way. I have the PayPal receipts for those of you who are interested. I want to say thank you to Anthony, who actually reached out to me sometime yesterday to ask me, "David, what is going on?" Many people did not do that. Many people have not reached out to Andrew. They have not reached out to me. They haven't reached out to anybody. They're just expecting, because there's such a thing called internet empathy, which is blind. You hear one side of a story, but you don't hear the other side. So Notwithstanding, this man has gotten thousands of dollars off of our name. We gave him a cheat code. We gave him a platform. None of the stuff that you saw under UCM belongs to this individual. Nothing. It belongs to Nicole DiCroce. It belongs to me. Okay? These are the principles. So I am going to say very clearly and without any malice at this point. Without any malice, I'm going to say this. The Kujikiri course will be put on our platform and it will be given away as a public service for free, which is what it was first intended to do. For those of you who think that it is just that you're going to pay £500 to an individual to give you a fake initiation, please feel free to do so. Okay? We will not stop you, but we are setting the record straight here. All right? We are setting the record straight and we will be putting it on. If this individual has a just cause and a just a righteous cause, or whatever the case may be, whatever he wants to say, and he has an issue with Andrew as well. If this individual has some sort of righteous cause, please do something about it. Yeah, like that. Andrew, honestly speaking, we've had a lot of weird people over the years. This one actually affected me because I felt stupid giving this man the opportunity to get money, to try to make money because he had quit his job. And I was told by Andrew, and I was told by other people as well, this individual is not worth the effort, but I countermanded all of them. Okay? Didn't listen to Andrew, didn't listen to Nikki, didn't listen to anybody else. And I still assisted this individual. That I feel stupid about. Trust me, I feel stupid about that. That's my spiel. I've gotten it off my chest. For those of you who want to approach me and actually ask me a direct question, if you are brave enough to do so, and if you actually are the balanced people that you say you are, spiritual people, then come in my direction and actually come directly to me. Don't make comments on other people's pages and then say, oh, in support of our friend and all that stuff. Come directly at me, okay? Because I am as clear as water. There will be no hostility or any of that, but we have the receipts. We actually have the PayPal transactions. We actually have the PayPal transactions to keep this man afloat. We actually have the software that this was done on. And trust me, he's not capable of any of that stuff. As you guys can see, there is no such thing as a Kujikiri initiation. It is information that you could Google online, guys. It really is, right? But he is a presenter of information, and we thank him for the presenter, being the presenter of information. I will grant him that. He's a good presenter of information. But to what the nature of a man, the nature of his character, what it is that he has done something good for somebody and then he turns around and begins to act like my precious. My information, it's mine. It's mine. It's hilarious to watch. But I didn't understand why, and you guys are going to have to educate me. How could people not see through this? How?
Because the love and light was so strong, David, that it became disgusting. And I want to give Nikki a chance and the opportunity to speak. Someone that was his manager and direct person that oversaw his work.
Yeah, well, we created this community for people to grow and learn and just to be able to have a safe place. And on multiple times, David had people come to him. I had people coming to me and saying, what is this? So it made women feel very uncomfortable. And it was just creepy. And it wasn't what we created the community for. So, yeah, it didn't turn out very well. And people really shouldn't assume. They should ask questions before they just assume, like that old saying, because it's unnecessary for all the back and forth. If people just ask questions and are straight up, then we won't have half the issues that we're having right now. So please ask us questions. We'll support you. We can do it in private, but this will not happen on our channels at all.
No, abuse of women, the vindictiveness, threatening them with black magic, and
Yeah.
advertising that you come from the left-hand path to scare people. It's a bunch of nonsense. Oh, by the way, there's a comment in the chat about royalties. For those of you who want to know about royalties and so on, you want the receipts, come at us directly, right? And we will show you the receipts. This individual who you are referring to in the chat has been paid in full for his participation, and we have the receipts to back that up. One thing that I am very good at is keeping notes and receipts. Okay, so there is that. That is the entirety of that. I hope that clears it up. And for those of you who want to learn Kujikiri, don't pay for it. It's inside our community and so on. And you can absolutely learn it free of charge. If this individual has a problem, he can absolutely come in my direction directly, as opposed to going online and trying to foment a bunch of things, because he knows he does not have the rights to do anything like that. But as it says, on with the show. In other news, let's talk about the psychology of mediumship.
So, moving forward. So, Nikki. So, let's start with mediumship and break it down. What does mediumship mean in your perspective?
Well, I'm born naturally psychic medium. When I'm working with clients, I have intuitive client, working with just intuitiveness. And then a lot of people do come to me for the mediumship. And it's really interesting because it's very healing. It's healing for the client in front of me. It's healing for the person on the other side that's crossed over. So it's a huge responsibility. But I'm very honored to be able to navigate between the seen and unseen. It's very natural for me. So it's very healing for people. Yeah.
Incredible. So what was it like for you, say, growing up, coming into today, and that aspect of seeing stuff as a child? Do you want to talk a little bit about the connection to the inner child and mediumship? Because at that age, we are so susceptible to the spirit world. It's so innately, so easy for us to be able to go or see it. So what was it like for you growing up in that way?
Well, it was a little strange because I didn't understand it. So the intuitiveness just came out of me. But when I got to maybe 10, 11 years old, I started hearing and seeing strange people or things. The one thing that I experienced a lot was a lot of set of eyes. Like I'd close my eyes and I'd see sets of eyes. So I think they were spirits that were trying to communicate with me, but I didn't realize what it was. So finally I was like, what do you want? I just looked into the eyes and they were stuck or they wanted to talk to someone. So it was weird because I didn't have anybody to help me navigate it. I didn't know what I was experiencing. But then I got the hang of it. So.
How did that work within the family, Nikki? And siblings?
Yeah, my mom understood, and they all knew I was intuitive because I would say things and then 5 minutes later it would happen. So they already knew from when I was little. They were like, whoa, what's this? So I could talk to my mom a lot about it. My dad was 100% Italian. He couldn't be bothered with anything. But I would talk to my mom if I would experience something or if I had nightmares. Because a lot of times they would come to me either early in the morning or late at night, or when I was in the shower, I would just have somebody pop up on me. And I was like, whoa, what's this? So I had to talk to my mom because it was kind of strange. Yeah.
And how old were you when you learnt to manage all these energies around you?
Ooh, that took a long time. It took a long time because being able to navigate and talk to the client in front of you, and then being able to navigate and talk to the spirit that's stepping forward. So there's a lot that goes on. It took me a long time, but I've been reading mediumship probably 25 years, but it took me a good 10 years of trial and error trying to figure it out. So it's been a process over 33 years, and I'm still learning. I'm learning every day.
I have a question.
Hold on real quick. What was your process when dealing with the errant entities that didn't want to cross over, or ones that were persistent that they were persistently aggressive. What was your jump into understanding how to deal with those?
Well, that was scary at first, to be honest, Andrew. It was very jarring at first because I didn't know what it was. But then I realized I have to stand my ground. I have to stand my ground and state my, my claim, because no, you're not doing this today, or no, they want information, or no, I cannot help you. You need to move on, or wait a minute. A lot of times I schedule clients and 2 weeks later, for 2 weeks out, and that spirit will follow me around, and I'm like, no, it's not your day yet. So a lot of times I don't cancel on clients because their spirit guides will follow me around until I get the messages through. So it's a little tricky to navigate, but I think I've gotten into a rhythm, into a schedule of it.
Yeah, I have a question to add to that.
Mm-hmm.
My experience growing up, pretty much everybody in this chat has some sort of intuitive ability. In an environment where people may not be as intuitive as you are, I had to learn at a very early age to shut the hell up and don't speak. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because there were consequences to speaking. You guys know what I'm talking about, all of you. Okay? There were consequences to speaking. If you warned anybody of impending anything and it happened, it was your fault. You know what I'm talking about. If you saw anything in anybody that was untoward, there would be, first of all, denial, and then aggression coming in your direction. But your particular skill set is even worse than any of ours. So that must have made you unpopular real quick. How did you deal with that on a social level?
Well, yeah, I learned not to say much, because I'm very observant of what's happening, with whether it's the seen or unseen. So, for example, a friend of a family, his mother had a stroke, and she went into rehab. She was comatose. And I said, the minute you move her, she's going to cross. And I said, you might not want to move her. And sure enough, they moved her and she crossed, and they all kind of looked at me. So I've learned to just shut up. If somebody calls me and says somebody's, very sick, I will pray for them, but I don't necessarily go to visit them, because their soul knows that I can help them cross. And I don't want to help. I don't want to help unless I'm, I don't want to preempt anything. So it's tricky to navigate, but I've learned pretty much what to do, what not to do.
Does it affect you mentally? Like honestly, I remember messing around with your skill set last November when we were under a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't fun. That was
No.
not fun. That was not fun for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you manage when it is you have, and it's not only people who have crossed over that you see, I'm sure of that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You see all sorts of things. And how do you manage to function during the day? And I mean during the day, when you just want to get normal things done, like Mary and Laura and Amy go to Walmart as an example,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
They just get the normal things done, like getting through the day and so on, and then you are getting unwelcome visitors in your life.
Yeah.
It doesn't get like crowded in your space, so to speak.
It used to a lot of times, but I've actually, just like with regular humans, you have to set boundaries. So they know when I'm ready to work. I absolutely have a catchphrase when I'm ready to work. So my spiritual team will, it's like almost like a channel that I turn, like a dial that I turn that opens them in. So at first it was just like anybody could walk in and do anything as I was growing up. But now I've had those barriers set up where they just can't walk in. Once in a while, a creepy demonic thing will pop up, but it's usually attached to a person or a client that I'm working with. It's not naturally coming from the other side. So yeah, I've learned how to manage it, but some days are heavier than others. And some days I do back-to-back readings, and then I'm wiped out the next day. I just have to sleep and eat and do something close to nothing. just to recoup my energy, because to hold that energy, that mediumship energy for long periods of time can absolutely wipe me out.
Yeah, the psychology of mediumship, both on the practitioner side and on the client side. A lot of people, when they approach a medium, what they're looking for a lot of the times is some sort of reconnection with someone who they've lost. Okay, just from a psychology perspective, we might say that there's attachment to that area, that person. Okay, and from a psychology perspective, I could give you the traditional psychologist's approach to something like this. It would be like, that person will not help you. That person will foment a delusion in your mind that you have some sort of connection with the unseen world, right? That's what a traditional psychologist would probably tell that individual, because they're all about making that individual separate from that person. But the concept of closure comes into play here. And Mary, you've had to deal with that at some point in time. I'm going to draw Mary into this discussion because she's way too comfortable in the corner there, right? You've had to deal with people who have this sort of attachment or this need to connect with people who have lost. They can't let go. How do you, as a medium, initiate the concept of closure with the relative? Because I could see that mediumship could be good for closure, right? But if that individual is reliant on you to try to connect with their dead relatives, as an example, do you have to set another set of boundaries for that individual? Because it would seem like your life would be like this, setting a bunch of boundaries. You know what I mean? You get what I mean? So what do you say to somebody when they're coming to you like, they're spending their entire life savings just trying to connect with their dead relatives?
Me or Mary?
Both.
Oh.
Both the psychotherapy perspective and the medium perspective.
Mary, do you want to go first? Give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is she frozen?
You're muted, Mary, as well.
Can't hear
I
you.
think you. Nikki, I guess you should go.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So for me, a lot of times clients come to me and they do want to connect with their relatives. And how I explain it to them is that your soul is your true essence. And that we're just renting these meat suits. Eventually they give out on us, but your soul continues. So a lot of people come for closure. They want to know, did their loved one get to heaven? Did they do the right thing with the hospital medical stuff? Did they do right with the financial stuff? So it's closure. A lot of times it's closure on both parts, because somebody could have killed themselves or gotten a car accident and it was so abrupt. They didn't get to say goodbye. So a lot of the times the work that I do is really healing on both sides.
Understood.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because what about the accidental mediumship? I'll give you an example. And I'm going to pull Dale, and Maty, and Andrew. You remember when you were when you were just becoming a massage therapist, and you first got into the massage therapy, and you got those thoughts in your head of somebody trying to tell you something that has nothing to do with the session that you're in. Okay? Because I know it happened to me. You're massaging, and then somebody's popping some stuff into your head, and on the occasion, and you're figuring that it's some part of your psychic sense that's happening, right? And then you say it out loud, and then the client says, "Oh my God, that's exactly what he used to call me." And I'm like, "Shit," right? The client says, "So is that biofeedback that's coming off of the client? Or is that accidental mediumship happening? Is it the feedback from the client? Because names will come into my head and situations will come into my head because of the contact that had nothing to do with what it is that I was trying to do." Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the thing is, there could be the physical side and then the spiritual side of an expression there. And some people will see spirit and some people will feel spirit too. And the journey of feeling can be the psychotherapy side, but it could also be the spiritual side. And the seeing, there are plenty of people who have dreams of visitation, and that is just as much psychotherapy as it is spiritual. And the journey between visitation, it's really the resolution that it creates within oneself. And as for working on a person and getting thoughts, feeling, concepts, and ideas, those are sensations that come through the journey. Oftentimes, if you're working on a person's, knots and energies, you get to feel their frustrations, their thoughts, their angers, their pains, and yes, words and sentences that normally they would say would come out of you. And it's understanding how the energy of the moment transfers into the experience that you're having, whether it's validating, devalidating, creating fear, envy, resentment, or none of the above. It creates absolutely nothing. Apathy, which is another state that the psychology of mediumship should be very much a part of, because apathy is an energy that can be destructive and healing.
Agreed. Agreed. When it is that you are doing, this is a professional question, Nikki,
Mhm.
because mediumship is a particular skill set that a lot of people are seeking. A lot of people are seeking mediumship. Okay, mediums. Having said that, there are very few good ones, but right, we finally got a good one to ask questions to. But this is not the entirety of your skill set. You do other things as well.
Right.
But is it the skill set that is highlighted the most when people think of going to you as an example?
Well, yes, they, like you said, they are seeking a good medium because they never think they're going to speak to their loved one again or get that connection or get that closure or whatever, like Andrew said, the aspects of that. But it's very genuine. It's very organic when I connect with the person. I tap into their energy. I start chit-chatting with them. And naturally, organically, that person or people will step forward. I don't have to ask. I just say my working phrase and I turn that dial and I let it naturally happen. It's not forced. I don't have to do a bunch of stuff to get them to pop up. And then I can feel their energy pulling back. And I say, do you have any other questions? Or sometimes their loved ones will sit for the whole session and we cry it out and we get through it. But it's very healing. So that's why I think a lot of people seek that, because they feel like they're never, ever going to speak to their loved ones again. Or their animals, or, I see everything, Yeah.
Mary, did you get yourself unmuted? No, you're still muted. If you're wearing a headset, there might be. Are you not wearing a headset?
Mary, at the bottom of your screen, there should be a gear wheel to the right that will allow you to set up your audio. The gear wheel to your right.
Yeah, her connection is red also.
I have a question with Laura. You do shaman. You do shamanism. What she's describing, at some point in time, you're going to have to the shaman's path and the medium's path will intersect. Is that correct?
Yes, mine intersected very early on, but I didn't have, and still don't really have the clairvoyant skill set externally. I do internally. I work more from clairaudience, clairsentience. From both. So, and also I do, I get many messages. My biggest problem always was trusting in myself, which is something I learned through Andrew over the years, was to actually believe in it, believe in the messages I was getting. And when I started to trust myself and trust what I was hearing and trusting all the synchronicities that came my way, and increase my daily practice and stepping up to hold and take on that mantle of responsibility that you need to do with this, then things started to fit together, and it made a lot of difference to, let's say, my communication with the ancestors. So mine is particularly with ancestors, but I've also more latterly, the last few years, had experiences of just having to cross beings over, which isn't something I felt I'd come for, but it's my contribution to service to light. So it's something I do. I personally use a rainbow bridge because I work with rainbow bridges, and that's what I like doing. And even in the property I'm living in now, I get disturbed. I have been disturbed quite a lot in dream time. That's another way they come to me. And I'm given a dream and perhaps shown how they died or what happened, and then I know what I have to do. And I always do it from a deep heart space awareness. I always go in there with a lot of love, unconditional love, and create the rainbow bridge for them and help them over. And so far, that's what's worked for me. I'm not suggesting that would work for everybody, because obviously I do a level of personal hygiene as well, which I consider as important. And what I've learned just in discussion with Andrew over the last year is sometimes the beings are not wanting to be crossed over, and maybe I have to make sure I completely shut them out of my dream time and my physical world, my sleep time as well, so that I don't get disturbed. And sometimes, as an ex-empath, I find that I have found that discernment difficult. But with Andrew, Maty, and Dale's help, I've been able to find.
It's a new word.
I've been able to find a bit more oomph and a bit more discernment. So and lose some of that light worker. Oh, I can help everyone, and I've been able to kick them out my dream time and blow up their dream worlds if that's what's needed. But I try not to be quite so aggressive, and I work on if they need to be crossed over, then that's what I do. Depends on whether I'm being attacked or not. But sometimes I find, and I don't know if you find this, Nikki, they're so desperate to get your attention.
They'll do anything.
Yeah, it almost feels violent until I realised that they were just so desperate for help. They were really desperate for help, and
they're stuck in between.
Yes, absolutely. And I needed to show some compassion. I needed to, to really go out there and help them and help cross them over.
Well, the problem is that sometimes when they come in, it's so abrupt. And it's like, whoa, geez, wait a minute. I'll help you if you give me a minute, that type of thing. So it's a process. You have to learn what you can do, what you can't do. And you have to set those boundaries, energetic boundaries, which are harder than normal boundaries, I would say. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I'm going to ask the obvious question that people are probably trying to skirt around. Do you ever get concerned that you might be drawn into that death vortex with them?
No, because I feel very protected when I'm doing this work.
Okay,
and I feel very
that's because you do a lot. That's because you do a lot of spiritual hygiene and a lot of other things, correct?
Yeah, grounding. I know to eat. I know how to schedule myself. Yeah, everything. Mm-hmm.
Because I knew some people that were messing around with mediumship that it went horribly wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Horribly wrong.
You could walk into the wrong place.
Never gotten into it in the first place, and they had no actual grounding skill sets and a variety of other things. But unfortunately, a lot of people in the spiritual community don't want to start as a newbie. They want to start as an advanced master without having to do the work.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, welcome.
Good.
Hey, welcome to the show.
I changed position in the room, and I just logged out and logged back in. So I see I have a green connection now. So I thought that maybe you put here. Sorry about all of that. I don't know what it was. I could only get a connection on my phone. So anyway, I can hear you. I know you asked me a question earlier, David, and you couldn't hear my answer to it. But as a therapist, I suppose if somebody said they were going to a medium, I would just work through what it was they were looking for and what closure they were looking for, and if it was connection they wanted or whatever. I wouldn't either, agree or disagree or encourage or not, but as a therapist. But personally, myself, I have always resisted that I could possibly be a medium. I had an awful lot of contact as a child with spirits when I was young, and thought that there was really something unbelievably strange about me when I could see things and hear things, but see things more than hear things. And anyway, to just make the long story short, my brother died there before Christmas, and sometime afterwards I thought, I think I'll go to a medium and just see. Does he have anything to say? Now, I didn't go looking for him, but I thought if he shows up good and well, he did show up. But one of the things he was saying to me, and the medium as well, was like, why are you doing this? Why aren't you doing this yourself? You don't need somebody to do this for you. So I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to hear from the other. She was getting messages she was giving to me that she couldn't possibly know, and I don't know how to make that connection at all. Do I really want to? I'm not sure actually that I do, but I suppose part of me would. I'm resisting it more than looking for it now, to be honest. But that's just what I wanted to share with you. So maybe Nikki has some idea as to how I could hear if that was, or can you train or can you up the sensitivity? Because I would be very sensitive to spirits around me at times. Like I was sensitive to my brother around me after he died for quite a while. And I think maybe that's why I went to the medium. I probably thought maybe he has something to say. Maybe he won't turn up. If he didn't, that was fine. But I definitely I could share lots of experiences with you that would kind of show you that he definitely was around. And I knew he was, and he knew I was. But I was perfectly okay with that. I mean, I wasn't scared of that, or I was fine with that because I would have experienced that before.
Right. It's delicate because you're dealing with the unseen. But if you have a knowing that that's him, and that he keeps validating things for you, and you just have that knowing, that's absolutely probably him. So you don't have to go looking for it. You could just let him step in when he needs to, give you a message, and let him step away. That's what brothers do, right?
But that's the point, Nikki. I can't hear his message. I can't hear what it is he's trying to convey. All I can feel is his presence. I can't hear what it is that he's trying to tell me.
Maybe he's not saying anything. Maybe he just wants to hang out with his sister. You know what I mean? Maybe there isn't a message. Yeah.
He had an awful lot to say, though, when I went to the medium. So I was kind of wondering, has he been trying to say this, before? Right. And I just couldn't hear him.
I got to be honest with you guys. There are two skill sets that in terms of the spiritual spectrum, there are two skill sets I never wanted to ever have. That was one of them. I'll be honest. Right? And the other one was the empathy connection. That empathy souped up. And I remember, Andrew, you'd remember last November and so on, I asked you, so I'm seeing dead people. That's new. Yeah, I have an issue. If I stick around people long enough, I tend to absorb a lot of things off of them. And yeah, with Nikki and I were working closer together. Yeah. I tend to absorb a lot of things off of them. And so that was new because I remember shutting all of that stuff down deep down when I was younger. And then it sprang up again, right? But then at the time, the reason why it sprang up was that my concept of defense weren't very, very well because I was under a lot of stress at the time. And then stuff started floating in, right? So I understand the world that you live in. Like empathy, that's a lot of information coming at you at the same time. And it's constant. Yeah? Now, the reason why I'm laughing at this is because we have Maty up in the corner there. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Absolutely. I was just listening to everybody's stories myself, and I had to deal with this stuff. I mean, my skills turned on and off all throughout my life, and then when they did come on properly, they came on, and I have to admit that I do feel comfortable in that environment. I do enjoy to be functioning multidimensionally. I like the challenge, but I first had to, when you just live in a normal life, or not so normal, but a normal life, and then all of a sudden you become aware of the environment that you're in on multiple different dimensions, it's a mess. And it was that learning to protect myself first and foremost, and then as my inquisitive mind just wanted to know more and more and more, it led me down lots of paths, left, right, and centre, into all kinds of mischief. But some of it, I mean, in the beginning, like the archangels things that you hear a lot of people talking about. Well, I remember being in my bed and I was just watching this little demon thing jumping from each one of my children, from one to the other, and even began like speaking through them and stuff like that. I had things like that going on. And I remember once I did call for Archangel Michael, and I did see this huge being come down with these wings and this sword, and then everything in that house just went, and it was beautiful. So there was things like that at the beginning, but a lot of it did lead you off down funny paths. But I had so much going on. I mean, just so much stuff, and it was the natural to gravitate towards ritual and ceremony, and that's when I mean, it took best part of a decade to actually get over all of that and get to the root cause of what is me, not the external environment. But as far as the mediumship goes, I didn't enjoy the dealing with dead people. I guess there's a way you could explain it. I did have experience with it at the beginning, and it was quite nice sometimes especially when there's people close to you and somebody comes in and you can give them some closure. But generally, I avoid it these days. But I do enjoy the crossing over process, and sometimes people will just people that I know will just, or that I know are passing, and I'll just glimpse, and then a greater process can unfold. Yeah. What was the question? Sorry, I was fading away for a minute there.
No, you answered my question. I want to take a poll inside this. Now, I'm so happy that we have so many people on. I want to take a little bit of a poll here. Now, when you guys first encountered spirituality, and I mean everybody on the panel, I know your story, Andrew. Broken neck will do it to you every time, right? A broken neck will do it to you every time. When you guys have encountered spirituality, did something happen at that point where you have suddenly that switched you on, or did it just happen? Did something specific in your life happen at the point when your spirituality switched on? And you don't have to tell me what it is. I understand that this is personal, but I always take this poll when I speak to spiritual people. When you first experienced spirituality, any kind of psychic awareness, aliveness, was something happening at the time in your life?
Yes, broken neck, dealing with the pain, death of family members, then euphoric events, like in my classic story at the baseball game, getting exposed to everyone's Akashic record that was in the baseball stadium, everyone listening live on radio, on television, everyone that was listening in the archive, past, present, and future, all that interacted with the broken neck, which activated my greater awareness, and which created what I call the 900-year-old 9-year-old.
Yeah, so anybody else? Because mine was traumatic as well. So
yeah, mine wasn't so much traumatic. It was I had a fairly traumatic life, but nothing really, really bad. It was all self-inflicted, really. But I had phases where I'd go in and out of spirituality, and I learned meditation skills, and then I came out of it and got up to all my other stuff. And I was involved in growing weed and large amounts of it. It was really exciting stuff. And I was in the process of I'd moved house. It was in 2012. I'd moved house. I was planning a great big business venture, and I just got the urge to meditate, and I activated it in myself. So it took me about a week, 2 weeks of just sitting down and going internal and managed to turn on my energy systems, and boom, it happened. And then all of a sudden I had this big awareness. So instead of it being just coming on and off throughout my life, I activated it to be on.
Can each of the rest of y'all remember when anything turned on in your mind? The time that it turned on, what's going on in your life?
Yeah, I remember as a child actually, being quite aware of another life and another world, because I used to spend a lot of time on my own, which I liked, but nothing really big happened until I was about 10, and my neighbor died, and it was my first encounter with death, and that definitely awakened me, because the other world actually became real and it became physical. And I saw him. And I know from a psychological point of view, again, I suppose the therapist hat would say, oh, well, you wanted to see him so much, or you didn't want him to die. You created that, you created the existence and all of that. But I know I didn't. I know that. And so there was a lot of things that happened around that at that particular time that made me very aware of it.
I had sorry, Amy, go ahead. Go ahead, Amy.
Okay. Mine is like Mary's in a way. It was death, and I didn't have people die until my 30s, and then 5 people had died within that year. So that was a big awakening for me. But then I can go back and say that as a child. Now, Nikki just had me remember something as a child. I don't know if you remember this picture of the guardian angels with the little kids going over the bridge. Does anybody remember that little?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So she made me remember that. I remember it was in my bedroom. And of course, I have a big family, so it was a shared bedroom. But I remember it was moving. I remember, like, I could see, like, things moving. And you just helped me remember that. So thank you for that, because it was like, wow, I probably just said that wasn't real. I probably was just like a little scared, probably, like, pictures don't move, but it was just enough for me to see. So then going to, I was raised Catholic, so going to Mass with my dad, especially with him, it was very visiting the statues after Mass. He would do this whole ritual after Mass, and we would go visit the statues and pray at them. So a lot of things have helped me along the way, and I always felt this protectiveness around me, as a child. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah, have you? Yeah.
I saw some crazy things when I was a child. It was all switched on. I remember one that really sticks out was laying in bed. I don't know how old I was, but it was dark, and just floating on the middle of my bedroom was what looked like a small galaxy, and it was just there as clear as day, just swirling. And I used to see shadows walking past my bed, and lots of stuff.
For me, some of the really activating experiences were converting from Greek Orthodox prayer to more of the indigenous culture, ancestral prayer process that included ceremony. That was highly, highly activating. I was 12 years old, and somebody gave me some animal medicine cards by Jamie Sams. Just reading about the connections to those activated wisdoms in me that would continue in dream worlds. And then for me, the toughest part was separating what was this world spirituality and spirits and what were off-world beings who were a different spirit in a different place in space and time, but were here simultaneously. And that created a separation of confusions. Like, there's always confusions about what you're talking to until you clear it up. And then there's another one, which is this is something completely different. It's a whole different set of confusions that when you clear it up creates a whole different set of answers. And being able to define the balance between the two, and then realize that the majority of the indigenous prayers and cultures connected to a star brother and sister, then I was able to make that greater connection and understand my more unique communicative purposes with them, which once that journey of doubt and hesitation was done with me at a very young age, it was getting over the confusion of details, okay? Which was probably the hardest thing because one detail and this detail, they don't add up until you realize the bigger picture. We're not dealing with one location of space and time.
Agreed. I think I have a lot of spirituality in my ancestry, up to my grandmother, and because my father knew this at an early age, he tried to stop that from happening with his kids. So he tried to stop us from meeting my grandmother on my mother's side, who was Kaylee, okay, original, basically Orisha religion, okay. So he tried to stop us from, for our own good, for our own sanity, because we've had people go completely different on the other side, and it was successful to a certain point, right? He did not anticipate an accident in my younger years, and then things got a little bit switched on. That would be an understatement. Too switched on. Okay. It got worse when I started to meditate at a very young age because I was falling back in school, and they don't give you the disclaimer that meditation will open you up quite a bit. Quite a bit.
You went from the 9-volt battery to the plugged into the wall.
Yeah. So I think that should be a disclaimer on most meditation systems. And when you teach a young child to meditate, while that child is still in the sense of wonder, because you know how open children are, right?
Yeah.
It dials it up a little bit too much a lot of the times, because you don't have the understanding of social constructs around you, which is why I asked Nikki this question. I'm going to probably ask this question again. You don't have the understanding of the social, what is appropriate, right? As an example, you don't tell a woman, oh, by the way, uncle, who's her husband, is going to die next year, and then he dies, right? That would be an error. You need to keep your mouth shut, okay? But you're a child, so you don't know any better, right? So, like Nikki, like you're going to school, you just want to go about your young life. You just want to go through life, right? But the psychology does not. Your psychology as a child, you're thinking there's nothing wrong with what you're doing because your sense of wonder is still here, right?
Right. And I didn't know I was any different. I didn't know people couldn't see and hear and feel what I did. So I didn't know I was any different until it smacked me in the face. I was like, whoa, you know.
Did it smack you in the face literally like me, or did it
literally smacked me in the face in the middle of the night.
Yeah, me too.
I had a spider
for me,
when I was.
For me, it was a general understanding that I was similar to them, but different at the same time. I learned specifically from what was working with me, I had to live two lives at once. I had to be the duality as the singularity.
Yeah.
And relearn that lesson. I had to be me. I had to be firmly me. I could not be a fake me. I could not be a screen me. I could not be a pretend me. I had to be a real me with real friends, real family, real relationships, real resolutions of karma. And I had to be the real me in spirit too. And I had to learn how to keep those temporally separate and I'll still allow them to cross over so the me, this Andrew, could have regular experiences with them, which was the unique challenge, finding people who are open to what you're trying to talk about. No one in my family could accept a single material of what I've said, and even to this day they can't. And that's fine. I don't need validation from them. And part of my individual journey was discovering my own validation.
But what you just described, Andrew, was exactly what attracted me to you in the first place. It was because I had all of these things that were going on with me, and it was very quickly extraterrestrial for me. It always seemed to be that things from off-world, and it's still to this day. It's all that kind of stuff and different dimensions, and but it was all over the place. And when you came out and you were your authentic self, that's what put the nail in it for me. You know, because everybody else was. They were just coming from this shared narrative that was just it was just delusion. You could hear it, and everybody was trying to be somebody but not what they were claiming to be. And you were the first one to do that, to really just lay it on the line and say, this is me as I actually am, and here's all this wisdom.
Yeah, Dale, you were saying something earlier on. I didn't.
Yeah. I was just talking about an experience I remembered as we were this conversation was going. Is one of the experiences I had. I used to have a lot of hallucinations when I was young, especially when I was sick, and I used to see so much stuff when I was hallucinating. And I remember one time, my granddad's house was fairly haunted. There was a huge spider just crawling over on me at night time. And I remember then, obviously, there was something in the unseen world there. And one of the biggest teachers for me throughout my life was seeing my grand die. I saw her die in a hospital bed, and I went to see her when she was dead. And the biggest teacher for me then was looking at her dead because her life was gone. And I realised then that that was a huge teaching for me, and I knew that was validation that the spirit is gone, and it was just flesh and like you say, the meat bag left over, and she's gone. Then a few weeks later, I had a dream where she was in my dream, and it felt like Atlantis or Egypt or somewhere. And I just looked to the right, and she was there, young, and she was like talking to me for a while. And there was like the Flower of Life wheel, you know, one of those roll where you go on the fairground. There's like those wheels what go around really slowly. There was one of those in the background with loads of like sacred geometry on it, and that was for me was the biggest kind of awakening for me, because I was like, holy shit, that I had seeing her dead, the spirit gone, and having that dream time with her. And I kind of ignored it for a bit. I turned to drugs, I turned to going out, until the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore, because it kept calling me until that day came where I was responsible enough to look at my own shit and start doing this hard work journey and actually putting in fucking effort to myself, where I was like, right, I gotta fucking do it now. And here I am today.
I have a case study for you guys. A nurse in a hospital, right, has a medical issue which requires her to be put into a medically induced coma. She comes out of the medically induced coma with a whole bunch of baggage, okay? Has to go back to her job in a hospital. Do you see the problem? All right? Because now she's plugged in, and she's in a place where death is going to be something that she's going to have to face every day. But you could face it if you're not, if you're plugged out, right? Because there's a certain amount of detachment here. But if you're plugged in and you're seeing people transition in a hospital every day, when you are medically trained, advice for that individual, anybody chime in.
Laura, do you want to take this one?
Oh, thanks, Dale. You've got
Stick is past you.
Goodness, I mean, what a difficult situation for her to work in, really, in her situation. She almost needs some time out, and if she can't get that, then she's got to learn some sort of techniques where she's able to shut off. She's got to be able to detach herself and shut off from everything she's going to come across in the hospital, hasn't she? I mean, you haven't given us too many details about what baggage she's come out with, but she's got to learn to live with that and create her own boundaries with the baggages she's picked up from that.
She sees dead
she
people
goes
and
back
newly
in
dead
a
people. That's the baggage.
Sorry?
She sees dead people and she's and newly dead people.
Okay, yeah. So she's got to learn to deal with what's happened to her first, before really stepping back into the job, surely, because otherwise she's going to go into overwhelm.
I think a lot of people who work in hospitals and so on, if you've worked there for a long time and you have experience plugging in to anything, you're going to experience death differently. But this is your job. This is how you make a living. I have had a couple of people who have come into my practice when I was counseling who did not know what to do with regard to all of this information that they were receiving. And so they first went to a psychiatrist, right, to give them some drugs to numb it out, right? And back then, the psychiatrists drugs of choice, what was it, Zyprexia or something like that, to stop this sight from happening. Believe me when I tell you, there's a percentage of the medical professionals out there who rely on drugs to suppress certain aspects of themselves so that they could keep functioning, so that they could earn a living. Okay? And one of the things that they rely on is anything that will suppress the psychic sense, the empathic sense, to keep them neutral, so to speak, because you are human beings and some things affect you. When I was a psychotherapist, I mean, Mary, I don't know, in your training and so on, they keep telling you got to go see another psychotherapist, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You need to go see a psychotherapist. Why do you think I'm training them? Right, anyway, right, you need to go see another psychotherapist, right? You need to see another psychotherapist to get the stuff out. But it's not a requirement in the medical industry. It's not a requirement that a doctor go see a psychiatrist. It's advised, but they don't do it. And then they hit a wall when they've seen enough. And so people who work in accident and emergency, as an example, or the emergency section of a hospital, they are under a special kind of pressure, both psychically and emotionally, every day. So for those of them that the trauma plugs them into something else. Nikki, I suppose I'm going to ask you this question, and Mary, I'm going to ask you this question, because we're doing the psychology of mediumship. All of a sudden, you're doing your accidental emergency, and then all of a sudden you begin to realize that there's another world. That will hinder your ability to function in accidental emergency, where you have to make split decisions really quickly. Okay? How do you advise? How do you advise somebody like that? Because honestly, the reason why I thought this topic was a good topic is because the psychology of mediumship is something that is very, very important for people who find themselves in these situations. Mediumship doesn't come when you go to a school. Most of the time, oh, I'm going to the school of mediumship. No, that happens to people arbitrarily. And they don't know how to deal with that. So, advice for those people, these poor people suffering, and I know a lot of them in the medical industry. How do you?
I would think, David, if you're a nurse, we'll say working in the A&E, and you were dealing with people who were dying, and you were very aware of the other world, and you were aware of, where they were going, and if their time was up or not. I still think as a nurse, you have to function and do the job that you were employed to do here in 3D as a nurse, and do whatever it is you can to save the physical. And then the spirit will take care of itself. If it's to go, it will go anyway, no matter what they do with the physical. If its time is up, it's up, and that's it. So you can't play God, really. You just have to do your job, which is the job of being the nurse, while you're aware of all the other realms. And in a way, isn't it how we live our lives, actually, those of us who are aware? Because we're walking the walk of the 3D, but we're also aware of what's going on as well, in all the other dimensions and all the other realms at the same time, all the time in our lives.
I'll tell you why I asked that question. I walked into a professional's office, a medical professional's office, a few months back. This man had this huge crystal in his office, right? He's a doctor, right? He had this huge black tourmaline in his office, right? I'm like, I guess you're going to be my doctor from now on. I'm sorry, right? He had this huge black tourmaline, and we know what it's used for, right? We all know what it's used for. It's used for protection, right? So to keep the forces at bay. And I'm like, I don't want to ask any questions to make him feel uncomfortable, but I know he has that there for a reason. Nikki, sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, I mean, just from my life experience, I've had a lot of personal death around me. Both my grandparents, both my parents, literally crossed in my arms. So I have a huge respect for hospice nurses. I mean, they are amazing. It's just they're just not nurses. They are angels that are here on on this earthly plane, because they help support the patient and the family. I mean, there's still some hospice nurses that I stay in contact with and send them a Christmas gift every year, just because their work is amazing. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it. I really don't. But big shout out to hospice nurses, because they navigate and they just make things smooth. They help you with everything. It's just amazing what they do.
That was one thing I always donated to as a hospice, as charity, because I really appreciate what they fucking do. I think it's beautiful. Some of the people and support.
It's amazing.
It's amazing, and there's one near here called St. Michael's Hospice, which I've done some fundraising for. It's the only charity I'd do some work for, supporting the local hospices, because what they go through and what they have to deal with, obviously people coming there to cross over on a daily basis. It takes a very special person to work in the field of being a doula on the other side.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And they're very aware of both sides. Actually, sorry, Nikki, go on.
No.
Oh no, that was me. And because I just wanted to add to this. After all those deaths in my family, the 5, I volunteered actually for hospice as a volunteer to go visit. And I just remember this one man I had to go visit, and I would just sit with him and just read, and he was dying. And for some reason, and this could be that mediumship that comes in, and I just kind of say to him, it's okay to go. It's okay to let go. You know, and then I find out the next day that I didn't have to go visit. You know,
a lot of times they're holding on and waiting for that permission to just go. Yeah, to let go.
So it was like, wow, okay. That's another weird thing. It's like, that was really weird. It's almost like and I wanted to ask you about premonition. Is there a difference between a premonition? Was that a premonition, or was that a mediumship that just something just said, say that to him?
It probably was a message that you were picking up on that you just needed to repeat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's an inner knowing and it happens really organic and naturally, not forced, kind of pops in your head, then you'll know that it's the right thing to say.
Oh, okay.
And you know, you'll find a lot of times people will be sick and their family will walk out of the room to go to the bathroom and get something to eat, and they cross over when the person has left the room, and they're like, oh no, I missed it. They do that on purpose. They don't want you to remember them that way.
It happened with my husband. He had to drive 5 hours to Pittsburgh to go see his dad, and then he came home and his dad had died on his way home. And and he but on that side of it, it's like he was really kind of like wanted to be with his dad, but you know, it's just not how it works.
No.
Not how it works.
And even saying, sorry, Laura, go on.
No, Mary, that's fine. You carry on.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, as Amy was saying there, you know, that she said if you want to go, you know, it's time to go, or if you're happy to go, go. So you can say that, but it doesn't always say that the soul is going to go, or that they're waiting for your permission to go. Because I had that a lot with my mother, who had Alzheimer's for 15 years, and she was very bedridden for a lot of it, and she broke her hip at one stage, and I just thought, oh God, please, you know, if there's any way she could end it for her, because it was so hard to see her. So I used to say that into her ear. It wasn't time. So she lasted a long time after that.
Incredible.
Nikki, does being a medium make you hyper aware of your own mortality?
Yes. And I used to be afraid, like have panic attacks if I thought about dying, but now I'm at peace. I'm okay, because I know I'm okay. I mean, I don't want to die. I don't want to go anywhere. Not anytime, you know, I'm going to live on 100 or whatever. But yeah, no, I've reconciled it in my head, because I know there's more.
Okay.
And isn't mediumship beyond the astral as well? Mediumship is beyond the astral. Mediumship goes beyond the astral. So
Yes.
when, like we were saying before, yes, I have had to deal with astral entities, but also I consider myself an ancestral medium. So I love to talk to the ancestors who've crossed properly.
Right,
And
because
that's
they've done it
another
all
very-
before us.
Yeah, a very joyful form of mediumship, isn't it? It's another form of mediumship.
Well, that's most of my mediumship is very positive. And once in a while, you
Yeah.
get a weird thing popping up. But if your vessel is clean and you're grounded and you're coming with integrity and truth, then those things typically don't pop up.
Kind of like the chat in most talk shows, right?
There you go.
See, the beauty of being trained in these things, for me, mediumship is it covers a whole spectrum of different things. On any given day, I function in many different realities, and it develops into, for me, it develops into, like, you can be anywhere you want to be, can't you? There's for me a lot of galactic connections, and working with celestial sources, things like that. So my mediumship is more sort of galactic or celestial sources, things like, not that I don't operate within in that realm, but yeah, when people talk about mediumship, they do kind of pigeonhole it just to that, don't they? But mediumship really is a very expansive subject matter, and
It is, because a lot of the times that I'm channeling, a loved one will step forward, but then a huge reptilian guide will step, and or an archangel or something, and I'm like, whoa, what's this? So yeah, it's a mixed bag. There's layers to it. There's multiple layers.
I was reading for somebody once, and they were just talking about a haunting that they couldn't get rid of because they'd had a shaman go around there, but the shaman was only coming from a spirit perspective. They'd done what they call a gazpacho or something like that, and they weren't aware of this reptilian influence, like not guide, I mean actual malevolent reptilian source influence coming in. And I was just talking to this lady, and I could see. So I looked into the person who was having the issues. I looked into it, and I could see greys, and then they came all sort of pleasant and willing to help, and I just kind of brushed them like a curtain, and they went away, and there was a reptilian behind them, and he was shocked, and I was shocked to see him, and then they tried to attack me, and then that's mediumship as well. This kind of stuff happens as I'm going about my kind of daily work, and it's a whole different degree to not degree, but a whole different expression to the healing type of mediumship that you do, because when people get their healing from you, there's a whole other load of world going on around that you're dealing with on multiple different realities all at once, trying to figure that out. And it's superluminal thought, isn't it? It's maybe not quite superluminal, but it's very quick and instinctive and natural.
And it happens so fast in a nanosecond, and you have to be able to decipher what's important, what's not, so it's tricky. It takes a long time.
I have a question, Nikki. You have children, right?
One daughter.
Does she have that ability, or like, is it, to me, it's in your lineage, right? That you have this, and was it passed on to her?
Oh, absolutely. She's way more powerful than I am. Way more powerful.
Wow.
Yeah, way more. Yeah. It's
in
shocking.
Did she come to you? Did she say, Mom, this is happening? Did she know about this?
Well, when she was a teenager, I walked in her room and it was gridded and she had all kinds of sigils, and I'm like, whoa, what's happening in here? But I understood it, and I wasn't mad because I was happy she was expressing. Because I didn't have anybody to talk to. My mom was old school, you know what I mean? So when she tapped in, I was very proud, very proud. Yeah.
Oh, and what differences do you
girl.
see? Yeah. What differences do you see in yours and hers? Any?
Well, she just has different gifts than me. But it's funny. So she is a medium as well, because sometimes my mom will visit just to visit, and then the same day later she'll say, oh, my mom was in my apartment, and I'll say, oh, she was visiting me too. So it's funny because my mom will come and visit both of us at the same day, or so it's really cool. Like her power of prayer is really strong. So if I have something stressful going on, I'll say, okay, say a prayer for me, and it always goes smooth.
Wow.
It's very powerful.
Nikki, we've got a couple of questions in the chat.
Sure.
Can I ask them?
Or can I ask a question first before we do it in the chat? So Have you ever? Obviously, you must have had many guides of your own personal as you've been along. Did you ever have one or two special ones that had to leave? Have you felt the heartbreak of a guide leaving and being gone? Someone that you've been close to?
I have a lot of guides, and they just keep piling on. So I have a whole spiritual team. I have my, angels, saints, spirit guides, and then I have my whole family, which is, I have a lot more family members on the other side than I do here.
Yes,
so,
me too. More friends, that's for sure.
My guides, the people will switch, the spirits will switch, but they never leave me.
I had one that left. I had one that left once. Who was moving on to do something else, and he was my first guide. He was a Mayan. Right at the beginning when it first happened, he was the first face I saw come into my vision, and he was a really happy chap. And he kind of lived in my mind for maybe a year and a half. Literally he guided me through the whole thing step by. He was always there, the whole thing step by step. He was never not there, and I asked questions of him constantly, and he was always so happy and so cheerful and factual, and then he faded away as I went on my journey, and then he came back several years ago and said, "This is me, I'm moving on now," and it was, I've never felt that before with somebody on that side, a death process of a kind, but not. I just wondered if you'd experienced that. That's all. It was very touching for me.
Well, I've had that. I personally haven't had that spirit, but other people have had that experience. And what it is that they've done their work with you and they're moving on. They'll come back in and check or say goodbye or whatever. And he might pop back in again. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It felt like a real goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that with the uncle actually.
Go, Mary.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Well, we were poised and waiting, Mary. Okay, let's do them questions from the chat then, Laura.
Okay, because I did ask them to put some questions in. Sarah Thomas, does Nikki communicate with animals? What's the difference with communicating with humans via animals?
Yes, I do, and there's no difference. I also do Reiki on animals as well. It's an inner knowing, because when the soul is in spirit essence, it's an inner knowing. It's telepathically communicating. It's not verbal. So the animal speaks to me the same way the person does. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And can she help people cross who died a couple of years ago?
Well, they've probably already crossed. Do you mean if somebody's stuck and they can't move through?
Yeah.
I've helped people cross over before.
Yeah, absolutely. Time, once you step onto the unseen, time is no longer relevant. It's a grid point, so you can go forwards and backwards as far in time as you want, and you can see exactly what's going on there. But you are entangled in that moment, so you do have to have the spiritual hygiene and the wisdom behind you to do something like that. You don't just jump into the past and try to rip people into heaven. It would go awry. Yeah. No,
it should be very natural and organic.
Yes, but you can do it. It's possible.
Yeah, it's just not the norm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
This is a serious question. Can you physically interact with a dead person, like pass them something?
Pass them something?
An object?
No.
Yes,
no.
I think they may be. Joseph, do you mean? Okay. Yeah.
They're in the ancestral realms now, so it would be the way you communicate with those realms is through prayer and offering and that kind of thing. So the physical object wouldn't really be of any value. But if you put energy behind that object and offered it in a certain way, then absolutely, but not at physical actual interaction.
I remember.
No, but I've had people come to me looking for, say, their mother passed and they were looking for the necklace that she lost.
Yes, absolutely.
I might be able to help them find an object on this side. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's super useful. I can't do that.
I get all kinds of phone calls daily.
That's super useful.
Nikki, where are my keys? I can't find this. I'm like, oh my God, really, people? Yeah.
Do you guys remember that story? It was an Adventures into Reality. I'm talking like 8-9 years ago. I remember listening to it, and there was one guy who had a car crash, and he was meant to die. And as he had the car crash, one of his ancestors appeared in the physical form and walked over to him while he was about to die and literally placed his hands on him and brought him back to life. But apparently Andrew was saying he broke all the reality rules, and if they come into a physical form, they break all their rules, and that it's like going against free will, basically.
Can I
He committed suicide, didn't he? Basically,
Yes.
the ancestor almost committed suicide in an ancestral way to
Yes.
save him.
He lost
Can I
all of
point out
his
something to
timeline
you
and
guys?
stuff.
I have spoken to a lot of people who have died, medically died, and been brought back. And the vast majority of them are very pissed. I was out. I was free. Why did you bring me back here? Why? Why? I was out already. I didn't have to go through this again. A majority of people, and I speak to a lot of people who have died. Actually, now that I think of it, I keep attracting people who've died. I really need to check myself on that one. Right? Right? Yeah. Right? And they come back and they're usually quite pissed. Like, I was good. I was good. There's, like, why did you come in with a defibrillator? Why am I back here? And so a lot of people generally tend to be like pissed when they die and they're brought back. Okay? They get very,
But what a
very-
rude awakening, though, David, huh? What a rude awakening. 1 minute you're just a normal Joe walking around with normal beliefs, and next minute, not only is your life in jeopardy, but you also experience the infinite, and then you're slammed back in that same position.
Can you imagine that you let's say something sudden happened? You have an aneurysm, it's quick, it's so quick that your brain doesn't register any pain or anything like that. And you're floating, and you're good, and you're out of there. You don't gotta pay no taxes, you don't gotta do, you don't gotta pick up the kids, you don't gotta do anything. And then some idiot comes in with a defibrillator, shock, 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 hi. And you're like, a lot of people have experienced what it to enact violence on their saviors, okay? Right? Because they were good and they were at peace, and then it's like a shit. I gotta not only come back here, but I still gotta do my taxes, still gotta pick up the kids, and I still have to go through life. So they have adjustment issues. They have adjustment issues. And the reason why I brought that up is because of the people who have died. I think that people get stuck not for themselves, but for other people in this plane of existence. If you catch what my meaning, they keep thinking about what's here, right?
Yeah.
They keep thinking about. They keep experiencing. I don't want to say the word thinking. They keep experiencing what's here. So, as an example, the mother with 5 children will more likely get stuck. Okay.
Right, because the children need a mother here.
The attachment is extremely strong.
Yeah.
But then also that experience on the other side, however much time it took, and you know, it's infinite in potential, and it will always be there for the rest of your journey, for the rest of your life, because its infinite potential is waiting to expand.
You see, we always assume that if you die, you'll receive some sort of enlightenment. That may not be the case.
No.
Yeah.
Right? What happens more often than not is like, I'm dead. Okay, let's say you have some sort of consciousness that you're dead. There's a white light. I'm floating away like in the cartoons. I'm floating away. You got a little pair of wings on, and then you see this guy running in with a defibrillator, doing CPR, and you're like, "Get away from me! Just stay away! Get away from me!" But they're on the other side, and they're thinking, "We gotta save a life. We gotta save a life," and you're like, "Leave me alone. I'm good." A lot of people have experienced that. They've come back to this realm and they are very upset about it. Okay?
You do hear people who've been given a choice though as well, don't you, David?
Yeah.
Like people that say they went across and then they were given an option. Well, here we go. This is us. That's you down there. This is what's going on there. This is what's going over here. What do you want to do? You know, and quite often people say, "Well, I need to go and finish what's going on down there."
You see, this is why I suspect Christianity invented hell.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you think that there's a horrible place waiting for you, right, like all of us, because I'm sure everybody in this chat has not been fully baptized, and you'll probably sinned today, right? And you're thinking, that's why they invented hell. Because if you thought, hypothetically, I'm going to throw this out there. You know, every show I got to do this shit here. Hypothetically, what if you guys found out scientifically that death was not the end. That when you transitioned, you went to some other place and you're free of the body. You don't gotta like even shower if you don't want, right? You're just in full spirit. What if you knew scientifically? Do you think that the suicide rate might increase drastically? I'm putting it out there. Do you think that it might increase drastically? Do you think that people might, oh, really? Oh, really? Well, okay then. I just need to get out of this meat suit then. You see the problem.
Yeah.
You see the problem. I just need to get out of the meat suit and I'm good. So, as a medium, the reason why I ask these questions is as a medium, you experience this life and then you experience the other thing. You're not like other people that are thinking there may be a lake of fire waiting for me. You're not thinking that, right?
And
There
that's
may be a lake of fire waiting for me at the other end. So, let me just stick here because that's the only thing keeping me here. I got seasons, I have winter. I got summer, which is not exactly hell. But the fact of the matter is, if I die, I might go to hell. But as a medium, they see both sides. You see the paradox that this could create inside your head.
And that's it, David. There's a lot to be aware of with death itself, that each death is a spiritual contract for the actual being itself. And from my own experience of seeing people die around me, my nan's death, for instance, was one of the most longest deaths. So she got into hospital and they said she won't last for about a day. And it took her 9 hours, 8.5 hours to die. She kept about to go, come back, about to go, come back. And my granddad just was screaming, please go, and she wouldn't go. And then my dad, for instance, had cancer. He died in the space of, I think it was 2 months or less than 2 months. A brain tumour killed him. Absolutely fine. Then all of a sudden he had brain tumour. Died really fast. My mum, he couldn't go downstairs anymore, so my mum made him a bed downstairs. And she came down. She used to get up at 3 a.m. because he never slept, and she made him a cup of tea and a hobnob. And she went down to see him, and he was just on the floor and on his face, just in the corner. And I was obviously going through the mourning process myself, spoke to Andrew all about it and talked about those deaths. And he was saying that my dad's was a spiritual contract for all of the ancestors in your soul family about quick death and how to mourn properly in this lifetime. And he was a big teacher, and he had to go through that death state in order to teach us a lesson. And my nan's, for instance, her slow death was, she resolved a lot of karma with the slow death. So she would so as she was having that slow death, before she died as well, she had her back was like bent completely. Something happened to her spine, and she was literally, she couldn't stand up for like the last 2 weeks. And Andrew said she resolved like millions of years of karma from being in that position before she died. And that was a huge wake up for me to realize, obviously, when it's our time to go, it's our time.
Agreed. I always wonder about the psychology of people, both, and now I'm wondering about the psychology of dead people, which is an interesting study that we should write a paper on, Mary. I think
they go to extremes in my view of them. They go to. Sorry, Mary, go.
No, go on. No, I wasn't saying anything at Massey.
Okay, I was saying they seem to go to extremes in my experience. Like quite often that they're just wandering around. I see them in the shops, but they will approach me. Sometimes it's just right, and they will approach me and they'll say, can you help me? And I'll cross them over. But there's sometimes where they'll be in a house, and especially when it's people like doing drugs or things like that, then they can get really angry, especially if they have an attachment to that house and any people that used to live there or something like that. And then so you can walk in that house and they can be very aggressive, but then once they realize that they can't be aggressive with you, then they quite often turn quite pleasant. Yeah. And there are other things that are not human that are just always aggressive.
I come across that a lot when I'm doing house clearing. Say somebody bought a new house.
Yeah.
There's a really weird basement or attic. And man, there's stuff in there. And I'm like, just go stand out in the driveway. Just let me handle this. I'll let you know. Because it's just, they get caught in those corners. And it could be a relative or not even their relative. It could have been somebody who built a house 100 years ago. And they won't leave that property. And they won't let their baby sleep. So sometimes that's when I come across the darker, shadowy type of spirits. But a lot of time when I'm just doing the natural client of mediumship, the spirits come through with a lot of sarcasm, their own personality. They'll say inside jokes that only that person and them know. That's how they validate. They'll say 2 or 3 things, and I can't make it up. And that's another thing, I had to be able to trust that. It took me a long time to be able to trust what I was hearing, to know that it was real, that it was, so.
And also, would you think like maybe those kind of, once they've got to that point, it sounds like they actually have an ancestral connection with them already. And so then you've got the other type of dead people, haven't you, which are not, which are still kind of coexisting in between the planes without their real source connection.
Yeah, they don't have source, and that's why they're flailing around, starting trouble most of the time.
Feeding frenzy.
I have a question. Do they change their personality once they pass over? Or is it the personality we remember them by? Like when somebody comes to you.
They have their personality, but what I find is that the mourning process and grief is very hard on the person that's in the 3D. But on the other side, that person is relieved. They've made their journey. They're not in pain anymore. They miss and love their loved ones, but everything is healed. They don't have any pain. They're not sad. The weather is perfect. The rainbows are all the way around, not just a half one. There's all kinds of benefits for transitioning. So their personalities come through. But
no, I was just thinking, wow, so maybe we're the stuck ones when we don't want to, maybe accept that they've
moved on.
What?
I want to develop Amy's question a little bit more. Like, when you live here, the things that determine your psychology and your personality is dependent on your experiences. So as an example, Laura's experience of life would be shaman, mother, ex-empath,
ex-lightworker,
ex-empath, etc. Right? That's her experience, and it determines that all these things bottle up become Laura. However, dead Laura has shed some of these identities, right? Theoretically. So I'm wondering about dead Laura. Okay, that's kind of morbid. I know.
No, I don't think it's morbid.
Right. So I'm wondering about dead Laura. Does dead Laura have the same personality traits as alive Laura? Does that make sense? Because the things that determine her experiences have been either added to and subtracted from. So the configuration which was Laura, no longer Laura.
So the answer to that in my experience is yes, but there's a definitive something that's missing, and it seems to be the more negative side of it. There seems to be a clarity to them, even an upbeatness, so to speak. I had a friend who died quite recently, only at the age of 40, and he was known for the way he spoke. He spoke very, very, very properly, and it was a joke because of where we were raised. But it seemed to be just a part of him. It was his signature frequency. It was his uniqueness and something about him, the way that he spoke. And once he'd passed and he crossed over, and he came to me to say hello as he was crossing, he came with that exact same feeling, the same flow of language. But then you could tell that they're also in higher thought. That's the only best way I can explain it. You can just tell the difference.
Mary,
I would say that too, because I, as you know, I just said earlier that I had that mediumship connection with my brother, and yes, the personality came through, the personality that I would have known, and he did say that he had left too soon. He said it was a wonderful way to go, but he said it was too soon. I shouldn't have gone just yet. And he said his understanding of everything from over there is very different. Like he said, there was different issues in the family that he knew I would know about, And while we didn't go into anything in detail, he just said, he mentioned a few things and he said, I understand that completely differently now. So I think that whatever karmic journey that we're on when we're here makes an awful lot more sense once we're free of the veil and the restriction of the body. And that was something too, actually, that I thought about a lot after he died. And it was even before I had the mediumship with him. I was thinking about him when he died and about the rapport in which he was held, which he would never have known. And he even mentioned that to me the day that I spoke to him. He said, I never knew how much I was loved. And I thought, yeah, I know you didn't. And he said it was very touching, to see that. But I felt when he died and the outpouring of, love that was the way people spoke about him and the way he had touched people's lives, actually, that he wasn't aware of at all. But I just got a sense that, do you have to leave to be seen? Do you have to drop the body to be really seen? Because he was really seen when he left.
It's a deep topic, Mary. Something that I've noticed this year as well, because I've had quite a lot of death in my family just recently, and we really did just get to see how many people were in their lives and tell touching stories about them, and it just makes it so real, And it did seem like, these things were just not considered while they were alive.
Yes, they weren't even seen. Actually, they were missed, and
Yes.
he was so misunderstood in so many ways, and that's true. You see, for all of us, this isn't just about him; it's about all of us. And I suppose for me, just a lesson that would be in that is, whatever length of time I'm going to be on the planet for, maybe that there's some way that I can make sure that I am better understood, that I can somehow convey the message of who I am clearer, and that somehow that, that experience that he had, there's some benefit in that for me, and there's some benefit in him coming forward and telling me that, and in the fact that I even realized it after he died too, because I was aware of the other side and aware of how he would feel when he would see it, and when he would experience it, because he did experience it. He did experience that outpouring of love towards him. And when he was being moved to the graveyard, when his body was being moved, a big butterfly came up from behind his coffin. And he said, when I was speaking to him, he said, "You saw the butterfly." And I said, I did, yes. And he said, "And you know what it meant?" And I said, "I do." And he said, "Yes, I did go straight to the light." So that was a comfort for him and me.
And that's a beautiful way how they validate.
Yes.
I only have one more question here with regard to you guys, all of you. You know how people come into this life with trauma from past lives? So I'm just thinking in the short term, when they die, let's say like the man whose wife, it's a joke really, but it's actually a true joke. An insect flew into this man's house and they hit the insect, and she hit the insect and it didn't die. She slapped it with a slipper, threw it into the toilet bowl, and finished 3 or 4 cans of insecticide on this insect while it was in the toilet bowl. Went out to do something else. Her husband comes into the toilet bowl to use the toilet bowl. He's smoking. He takes a cigarette. He drops it down into the toilet, and well,
Poof.
Oh God.
No.
as an experience. Let's say she finished 2 more cans, and he got blown up on the toilet bowl. Okay, let's say he did that. Let's say that happened, and he's dead now. In the short term, in the interim, when he transitions, and he's thinking, "God damn, I guess I'm not using the toilet bowl in the next life." Right? God damn. Right? So I'm asking you these questions. I am asking you these questions because in the short term, do you think that the person who has just transitioned might have an issue going to the bathroom? Maybe like going into the bathroom. As an example, like does the trauma of the passing work with them? You see, because we're doing the psychology of mediumship, so I have to deal with the psychology of dead people. Now you all have me all interested in the psychology of dead people. Let's say somebody's gotten blown up on a toilet bowl. They will haunt the entire house, but not the toilet bowl, right? You get my point? You don't go to that toilet ever. That might be the in the house.
Well, when you hear of these young children that remember their past lives, which are quite popular in the culture, quite often they will talk about their moment of death, and it's quite a trauma to them still, isn't it? You know, that there'll be a theme to it and something that will interest them or captivate them or repel them. So it definitely must carry on.
Okay, I have to say, my daughter, as a young girl, she was afraid of toilets, so it must have happened. She did not like you'd go.
There you go, David. There's someone who
go.
got exploded on the toilet. Oh shit!
There's your validation.
Especially silver ones.
Oh God!
Silver ones. So
why was she afraid of toilets, baby?
Oh,
know.
Can I just tell you, on an airplane, I had to go in the airport bathroom with her and sit on the toilet, and she had to go to the toilet. She had to sit on me to go to the bathroom. That's how afraid she was.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I have
questions.
questions.
I don't mean to go on,
I have questions.
I mean, she couldn't hold it the whole flight, right? She couldn't hold it. I had to think of something. I was very creative, wasn't I?
I have so many questions. First question, turbulence. How does that work?
I don't know. We managed. We did it.
Okay.
She was like 4 years old, so it wasn't, she's tiny. So I know. There you go. Thank you I'm going to tell her this story.
This is not over, Amy. This is a whole show that we got to do.
Yes.
Funny.
We need to hear more about that, Amy.
Yeah. It was a challenge, let me tell you. I don't know when she even grew out of it. I'm trying to think.
So I have airport toilet trauma myself.
And centipede
it just
trauma.
happened last month. I was on a flight coming back to Toronto on Air Canada Rouge, and there's smaller planes, really smaller planes. For those of you who have never met me, I'm like 6'4", 5", around there. So I get into the toilet, right? The door is one of those fold-in doors. So I get into the toilet, right? And I can't stand up straight. Do you know that peeing is necessary? It's necessary that you stand up straight. Did you know that? You can't.
No.
Yeah, and then there was turbulence. I asked you that question.
We get the picture.
Piss all over the trousers.
I know one thing I know about airport. Listen, my face hit the wall. Okay.
Oh God.
Yeah, not.
Oh my gosh, so see.
And if your face hits the wall of an airport toilet, there's no way you will ever feel clean again. No amount of Kleenex will make you feel clean. Okay, not really.
That's the issue we have having a hose pipe.
Now,
The downside, I've had it before where it's got stuck in the zip, and I thought I got it fully out, and I started having a wee. It was in public, and it just sprayed onto my top, and I was like, and I'm there in the toilet like, what am I gonna do now? So I was like,
ouch.
Ouch. Now, let me ask you a question, Dale. What if I had died in that toilet? What if the plane had crashed? And my last memories.
I think you would have maybe had
cooked up in this toilet and having my face plastered against the wall.
I think you'd be that spirit that's reincarnated in the toilet.
You would be birthed in a toilet when you came
Yeah,
back.
he'd be.
No,
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
No.
I would die right there in that toilet again.
You'll end up being a cleaner on the aeroplane. You'll be like resolving your karma, cleaning the toilet. Like, not this time.
These are the questions I ask because the psychology of the dead is something that hasn't been examined very much, right? Neither is the psychology of the reincarnated. right? Because people read Akashic records, but they don't understand that if the breakthrough information that comes in to this incarnation, the things that we come in hardwired with, are relatable to the experiences we had when we were alive before, right? This has happened before. And so when it is that you come into this life with a kind of hardwiring, each one of us has some basic hardwiring, which we spoke about, right? It's embedded, right? Some of us come in left-handed, some of us come in right-handed, okay? And some of us come in with particular peculiarities, okay? I'm sure each of us, we probably forgot, but there was a skill that we had that nobody had to teach us, that we just somehow blended to. And so the psychology of these things and the impact of these things, if they survive the death process, they have to be so ingrained in us, in our personalities, right, to survive the death process, that when it comes to just transitioning or reincarnation, these things become overwhelming energies that we can't escape. So that brings the question, this is the question. If you're dead, is your personality still hardwired? And if the personalities we have right now are just a continuation of the personalities we had before, because the influence is there. Does that make sense to y'all? Like, we could say, okay, Amy, you're Amy, but that lollipop you had earlier on in the pre-show, that could have been a predilection from a past life. Maybe you are a confectioner. And so, does that determine does your sweet tooth determine the sweet tooth that you have? Is it predetermined from experiences before? I'm sorry, I'm just throwing medium questions out there.
That's a really good question. But from what I experience with my clients, everybody comes through with their natural sarcasm or humor, because I'll say something and the person will say, oh yeah, that's totally my dad. He always said that. So I think there is aspects of that that kind of filter through.
Interesting.
Well, let me just throw this in, David, that I'm diabetic. So the sweet confection.
Yeah, diabetic, talking to a nutritionist on the pre-show.
No.
Realize that
I throw that in because you're funny, because you said I was confectioner. I could have been, but now it's like the sugar thing. It's kind of funny. It's just kind of funny to me right now. Yeah. It's kind of.
Dale, may I make a suggestion for a show? That's a whole show on Amy. Oh
my gosh.
The lollipop lady.
The lollipop. Yeah.
So Nikki, do the like okay, so my passed on mum, grandma, anyone, friends come to me in dreams, and they are as they were here, and they use expressions they use here, and I recognize them from vision, I recognize them from voice being the same, from the same sayings, like you say, that no one else would say, and stuff that might have been just between us that I would understand. Are they doing that so that you know, so that the 3D person like me understands it's them? It's to make it absolutely clear that there's no, this couldn't possibly be anybody else. So are they able,
that's how they validate.
Right, yes. So they're able to, I wonder if they're able to project that energy rather than fully be that on the other side. Do they use that as a sort of a bridge, a projection to the person they're talking to on Earth, say? So that
I don't know if it's a projection, but it's definitely a bridge. It's to make the person feel like it's real.
Yes.
Yeah, validate it.
Which of course it feels very real, doesn't it, when they're communicating in that way?
And it enables the connection as well, because once you recognize that, you know, there's a connection. Like, I don't think that they're necessarily operating out of that personality when they're not in contact with us. I would say they're free of everything that was
Yeah.
human, really. Yeah.
I think they adjust to that so you can harmonize with it because you're used to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about the situation you can have where people who've been murdered name their murderers? Is that actually
Oh, yeah.
admissible in court? That sort of information.
That would be a David question, but it is admissible in court. But I've worked with murder cases, missing persons, and they will tell me exactly what happened.
So I can answer the question. I can answer that question. Police generally tend to use psychics. Police departments do use psychics, whether you guys know this or not. And what they're looking for is evidence to convict people. Like, so if a psychic can give them information, as an example, they go look up the information and it's the evidence that convicts the person, right? So
Yes.
in the past, there has been a challenge. I forgot the case. I'm going to have to bring this up to you. It's actually it was actually made into a movie where defense has tried to counter the evidence by saying the evidence was done by a psychic, right? But evidence is evidence, and the different classes of evidence. So when they brought up the argument that the evidence was brought by a psychic, it was like that's not an argument. The evidence is right here. Okay, it doesn't matter how they got the information. All that matters is that your client is guilty. Okay. There have been other cases. There are precedent cases involving spirituality, and that's a really good topic for a show because I have a few cases that have gone to acclaim, and movies have been made out of them, of people who have been saying that they've been attacked and psychically attacked and stuff like that, right? Or people voices have made them murder people. Okay. And to a large extent, in the 60s, it never used to be admissible, but it's becoming admissible now. But they didn't have a category to put them under. So they put them under this broad category, which we call mental impairment or temporary insanity, as you know it. Okay. But nobody in the court believes that it's temporary insanity, right? And so they are prosecuted under temporary insanity. I have a few cases. I wish I knew that we were going to be talking in depth about this, but there are a lot of court cases, criminal cases, where the concept of spirituality, where people have been compelled to do things that are criminal against their will, right? And so what the court takes into consideration is the person's personality and their method, the randomness of the act. So as an example, somebody who's been a model citizen throughout their entire life, right? Model citizen, helped out at community, churches, events, and so on. All right. Worked at a homeless shelter, all of a sudden just gets up and then kills somebody. That is an arbitrary thing. There's no explanation for it. You cannot discount the person's personality before that, because what prosecutors try to do is create a narrative of a criminal element in an individual, right? But if the person, there's no explanation, the person is guilty, right? I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about in my own personal it's not a good example, but I'm going to give it. I went to school with a bunch of people. This had happened in a Caribbean island. And in my class, there was a young man who got involved with another man, not sexually involved, just got involved with his dealings. And they were reading something called from De Laurentiis. You know that author? Do you guys know the author? The Master Key? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so the necromancy, basically. They were practicing necromancy, except they were mixing it with marijuana and stuff like that. Now, these were good kids. Okay. Well, one of the kids chased down his uncle, cracked his skull open with a rock, and started biting on him. Okay. One day, out of the blue, it was completely random. He just got up and did that. This is a true story. They did not know what to make of this. Temporary insanity. They tried to figure out, was his relationship with his uncle stressed? No, his uncle, he lived at his uncle, right? They were having drinks up until the weekend before, okay? They were fine. They went to parties. So is it the drugs that did that to him? But we don't know how weed makes somebody do that, okay? And so the end result was that they put him in an asylum for, 5 years? And they let him back out. Really, really drugged up. He is of no use to himself, because whatever they do to you in it, you guys don't have asylums anymore in the NHS, do y'all? They
No,
banned
not
that.
anymore.
No.
So you remember when there used to be an English expression, when you get sectioned? Y'all
Yeah,
don't-
we still get sectioned.
Yeah.
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 But they put him in an asylum because it's the third world. We don't have all the facilities that y'all have and the access to resources that you have. And they put a lot of drugs in this man, a lot of drugs. Okay, so he is very docile right now, but he's not going to be winning any Nobel prizes. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
these are sad stories that are real stories that have happened. Okay, so from a spiritual perspective, you could say an entity jumped into this man and caused him to commit that crime because he was not protected. He didn't
It
know
sounded
what
like classic demonic possession.
right? He did not know what he was doing. But under the laws, especially we're under the old English Commonwealth law, as an example. Our law is a mixture of English, Canadian, and Australian law. Under the laws, there's no section to put that in. There's no section to slot that in. So
No.
they find this concept of temporary insanity or some sort of mental impairment to allow people like this to not feel the full brunt of the law, because they know what has gone on, but they won't acknowledge it. Okay?
In the UK,
So-
lots of them people end up in the prison system these days, David. So they do section people off, but it's very temporary. But a lot of them just keep making their way back and forwards from the, prison system.
And I think it would be frightening, and I'm going to try to get you all those stats. The number of cases like these, which are unexplainable,
Yeah.
which have happened to people, and the law doesn't have a way to process these cases.
No, but they're easily be explainable to us. Easily
Yes.
explainable. That's the sad thing about it.
Yeah, when they accept there's an unseen world and how the unseen world can react and interfere, and the incursions we can have, then I think it will be a different picture. But we're away
It
from
always
that,
happens
aren't
to
we?
kids, though. It usually happens to kids, right?
Yeah,
It happens to kids a lot, and we had a lot of these cases in the third world, and it became a bit of a problem over a period of time, right? I don't know. I know in England, y'all had a lot of these problems. Y'all had a lot of these problems, right? And the NHS had a special category for these things. I can't remember your system. Your system has a special category for people who are there. They call it sections and so on, but y'all have more resources than that. Y'all have like programs and stuff that you have. We don't have those programs in the third world. So what they do is that they load you up with drugs that makes you docile for the rest of your life, for sure.
Yeah.
Right?
hmm
So
David,
yeah. Or
can I ask
they
you a
perform
question?
some for my mother. They performed some sort of Ellis's treatment, and she was not the same again. Really, after
yeah,
that.
go ahead, Dale.
I mean, she wasn't as bad as what you are, as the case that you gave, not nearly, but she definitely had, let's say, haunting. And it wasn't until Andrew, right in the very beginning, when I met him, guided me through how I could help her, that we actually got her authentic self back in. And,
There are a lot of cases of people just flipping out for no reason. Go ahead, Dale.
Can I ask a question? So, say if someone's tried, and say if they do something like murder someone, but they don't actually think they're doing anything wrong. There's no they actually don't realize they're doing anything wrong. Do they try them differently? for that at all. You know,
Okay,
say if
I'll give you another case. And the case, they do try them. It depends on the court system that you're in. If you're in the English system, the modern English system, I'll give you an example in the Caribbean because I have a lot of examples in the Caribbean. If you are in the Caribbean as an example, and I'll give you an example of a lady named Geraldine who was married to a man for a while. She was a fitness instructor. Okay. And the marriage was fine. Everything was fine. She was also a devout Christian. Listen to what I just said, a devout Christian. So you know he's going to be vulnerable. Okay? This woman, for no reason, the man wasn't cheating on her, the man was not beating on her, picked up a knife and stabbed this man 17 times. Okay? And then invited people, like the next door neighbors, and just went about her business. She had no clue that she did anything wrong. She had no clue. The next door neighbors just saw her come outside and she said hello to everybody. She was nice to everybody like before and everything like that. These things actually happen. These things do happen. Okay? And they happen suddenly and people don't have an explanation for them. And people live their entire lives. So this man's family now has to live, right? This is in Barbados, by the way, Andrew. Like the Anne Rose situation. Remember the Anne Rose situation?
Oh, hell yeah. Tell them about that one.
We're going to talk about that too. She had no clue that she had done anything wrong. She left that man bleeding, went to the supermarket to buy stuff for the meal for this man's dinner. She still loved this man while she was going to buy stuff, right? So she comes back and she's in, like, the man is bleeding and she doesn't register to her. So how do you explain it? Okay. We had another situation, Andrew and I knew these people, of a woman who set up a witch's coven. Okay, you know, she was part of a brethren of people. She set up a witch's coven, and she had a bunch of witches. One of the witches is Godchild went sideways. And when I say went sideways, I mean fully sideways. She was caught on social media with the rest of her witches people dragging that child up the steps to the coven to get exorcised. Okay? So that didn't end well because the end result was that she's dead now. Okay? Nobody, she just dropped dead. These things happen. There's no reasonable explanation for that. How do you prosecute the wife in that case? Yes, she stabbed that man 17 times, had no clue, greeted the neighbors, went to the church, went to get stuff at the supermarket, came back home. The man is bleeding. By the time neighbors have found out, right, all of that shit has gone on. And she's like, she doesn't understand what's going on. She's completely oblivious. That woman didn't intend to kill that man. You have to provide a motive when you want to prosecute someone, right? So in England, it would have been handled differently. It would have been handled as temporary insanity, as an example. In the US, any number could play. So I don't, the US, because anything could play in the US, they would have tried to prosecute that depending on the state you're in, right?
Well, we had that here, David, with a guy who came in our garden. He kept coming back to the house, and we got him arrested, and he got arrested eventually at like 2 a.m. the next day, and they couldn't charge him because he didn't think he did anything wrong by coming in a house, by stepping in someone else's house. He actually didn't realize he did anything wrong, and blindly he didn't think he did anything wrong, so they couldn't charge him. They had to take him to be checked out mentally, and that was it. He stayed there for like 4 days, and that was it. They couldn't actually prosecute him.
Yeah, in the US, ignorance of the law is no excuse, is what they say, right? And justice is blind for a reason. The US is the only locality that will prosecute someone like that. Okay, but clearly it depends on the state. Once again, not all of the states will operate like that. But when somebody doesn't know that they've done something wrong and is just going about their lives, that person needs some help. However, what help can you give them from a psychiatric perspective? There are a lot of people who are in asylums to this day in the third world, who do not need to be there, right? Because when whatever event happened to them, it left, let's say an entity jumped into them, it left them with the crime. So they're in an asylum getting loaded up with mind-altering drugs. And let me tell you, the drugs that they give you when you enter an asylum, you're not the same person when you come out. Like, you can't even talk.
So, Andrew, while you're here, if you're in that scenario, like an asylum, and people are going in there because they've had various forms of demonic entities attaching to them and done these things, does that asylum then become like a territory? Would it be one demon or many demons, or would it be a free-for-all?
So most of them become ancestral demon haunting places based off of the doctors that are supporting it and the staff that are in it and the money where it's coming from. Now, there are like high schools and colleges which are free-for-alls, but the majority of people that end up in facilities either have court orders or something that bonds it to an ancestral ruling, which means there's a resolution of some type of ancestral debt that has put them in there for whatever reason. There's infinite potentials of reasons that it can happen. Even for people who did nothing wrong and get put into mental hospitals, that happens all the time here in the United States.
Yes. Agreed.
So the other thing is it territorial? Well, there are often times that something is a positive ancestral place, but because of the corruption of government and the rapid changeovers of staff or doctors who become progressively more science and don't allow a tiny bit of faith in their aspect, and they begin butchering people in their minds for experimental purposes, then you get a situation where external entities will squat in that reality and slowly take it over. Here throughout the United States, we have these insane asylums from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. They're all out of business now. They were unfunded. They're terribly haunted buildings. All the big ghost hunter shows go to those. Okay? When I'm talking terribly haunted. And then you get some of them that are, were made in the late 1880s, early 1890s, and they did full-on experimentations on people then, which was completely legal to do. All the way up into the 1970s, anybody that was committed, they could do whatever they wanted to, and there was no repercussions to them whatsoever. So many of them turned into experimental torture facilities, unfortunately.
So why would a collection of beings like that, who are energy harvesting entities, be somewhere where people wouldn't generally be? Are they linked to that land because of what went on there, or were they were contracted to that area?
So let's take the word energy harvesting being out and say being of opportunistic timing.
Okay.
And every land has those. It's a predator. If a bear smells food, it's going to go after the food that it can get to, not the easy stuff. And then if you have what's called a bear can, it's going to have to get through the lock, and it can't. It'll eventually give up and go to the easy food. Predators will always go to the easy food first. And oftentimes predators make rules with other predators. All right, you get it from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. I get it from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And if anybody else comes in here, we'll both fight them off on our own terms. Okay? Are they working together? No, they're just splitting up time.
I really recommend two things if you guys want to be dropped into the deep end of the spiritual ocean. Visit one of these old asylums. It doesn't, whether it's populated or not. Specifically, that would be the deep end of the pool. And the other thing is going to see an autopsy.
Sure.
I would recommend these two.
I want to say something. I've had people call me from the asylum to do sessions. Process them. Quite literally, called me from the asylum to do a session.
Yeah, that wouldn't be me. Nope.
It's happened more than once. It's happened more than once.
Asking for my purpose.
I hope they all.
Yeah, what's my galactic history?
Wow.
Okay.
That definitely wouldn't be me. I'm like, no. The number you've reached is not in service. Please check your number again and dial 411 for assistance.
No, I did the session. And it was take your medicines, do what they tell you to do, get out, and do what they tell you to do. This is the 15th time you've come in and out for that particular person. Okay? She spent more time in than out. Okay? She has no out skills. She only knows how to be in.
I want to say something, and it's not an aspersion on the medical fraternity, but a lot of psychiatry is experimental.
Yes.
And the reason why it is because you're not going to get two people who have reacted to the same set of events the same.
Exactly.
Everybody is a fingerprint mentally.
Yep.
So let's say you want to put a bunch of interventions in place for someone. It's going to work for one person, but not the other one, huh?
Yeah. You know, I have this ongoing internal process when it's, you know, people ask me how can I keep my kid out of a facility. Well, if they're already at a stage they need to be in a facility, something's gone wrong, and there's very few stopgap ways to get a person to do work on themselves. It's hard enough just for a regular person to start spiritual work. And for somebody who's beginning to experience schizophrenia or any of the other forms of diagnosis, it doesn't matter what it is, spirituality is one of the toughest journeys to bring into your life. And everyone here at this table will agree to that.
Yeah.
You add in some type of mental structuring issue, and it's not even that, whatever it is, the battle, you're split in two. And whenever you have to fight a war on two fronts, you're never really going to win. You're never going to be able to excel at it. So it requires the sabbatical energy. But most people that are already at the, point where something is taking over their lives, not an entity, just an aspect of themselves is beginning to run wild, they don't have discipline. They don't have commitment, and they sure as hell don't have the courage to go through it. And that's the unfortunate part about so many of these psychotherapy illnesses. It just takes courage and some somatic releases. There are some incredibly potent somatic release teachers out there that can just help these young kids whose depression is turning into spiraling manic depression or turning into histrionic personality disorder or all that other stuff. And I'm not talking cranial sake. I'm full somatic release, using the actual somatic release techniques. If they were incorporated into them when they started seeing the counselor when they were 10, 11, 12, 13, the vast majority of these mental health illnesses can be taken care of with just that. Unfortunately, our community of doctors and scientists don't want to admit how effective somatic release can be. Okay? Somatic release is scientific and spiritual at the same time. It's one of the few things that crosses both borders.
Agreed.
Would you
But I
say
also
that?
wanted to take a little bit of a note to the spiritual people here. On this panel right now, we have Maty, we have Amy, myself, Nikki, Laura, Mary, and Dale and Andrew. Notice that you all have been able to maintain your sanity while working in the spiritual realms.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people have not been that lucky.
That's right.
A lot of people have not been that lucky. I think that spirituality is one of these things that amplifies what you have on board.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you have a little bit of crazy on board,
Yeah.
it's going to get amplified.
Okay.
And it is tough, like some aspects to deal with. It's a tough journey at times. And like you say, Andrew, it is commitment, effort, and putting in that effort toward yourself and not thinking that it's just an easy, quick fix, I'm going to do it. And a lot of people come on the spiritual journey path and they realize how hard it is, that they have to fucking graft the way into a better life. and it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and years and years of building yourself up slowly and slowly. And that's from
Then
my
they look for the
personal
easy
experience.
way, constantly looking for the easy way, the pill that will replace the medicines. I don't want to take the pills they want to take me. Where's the pill for spirituality? And unfortunately, they don't see how that inner schismatic process that's inside them. So I want to change the direction just for a second. So Nikki, in your journey working with as a medium, have you ever dealt with anybody that's had abduction processes with UFOs?
Oh yes.
What's it like from you as a psychic medium energy?
When they have experienced that, they really, I've experienced that a few times. What the client wants to understand is what's happening to them. Why are they being taken? Why are they being abducted? Why are they sucking things out of needles and tubes out of them? They want to know why they were chosen, why this is happening to them, because they can't understand it. Did I answer your question right?
Yes, absolutely. They can't understand it. And what are some of the things that you do to help them release that?
Well, I have to, because I'm not that versed in alien abductions, I have to tap into their spirit guides, their team, and get the answers from them, because I'm not that versed in that subject. But usually I have to call in their spiritual team to get the reasons, because every client is going to be different. So it's going to be a different reason. Yeah.
So when you're tuning into their guides, how different are their guides to ours? Is there a universal cookie cutter guide energy you can work through?
Well, that's their family members. When it comes to galactic stuff and UFO, so it's different, because then you have all those different entities, and all the different lineages and pulled in, if that makes sense. So
yes,
or karmic resolutions or whatever contracts they have. So it varies, and there's a lot of different levels to it.
I've had a number of experiences where you're dealing with somebody who has long-term abduction process, 200-300 in their lifetime, and they're 30 or 40, okay? And many experiments done on them until they get to the grander understanding of why. It's what you were saying. Oftentimes it has something to do with the lineage of that off-worlder in this physical worlder. It's some unique, weird galactic crossover of how souls go from one world to another. There was a linkage that connected them to the etheric realm to the physical realm. Okay? And right now we exist in this point where many of these linkages between etheric and physical are manifesting. And I would like for you to talk about that when you catch a link and you begin to read the data, because so many people don't realize what it is, reading data, communicating. Give them a little insight. If you could open the curtain of what it's like to try to communicate and process the data.
Yeah, well, the data that comes through is an inner knowing. It's not words so it's just an inner knowing. A lot of times when, like I said, I tap into their spirit guides, whoever they're working with, to resolve those issues. A lot of times it's buried trauma, that ancestral trauma that they have not addressed, and they have to in this lifetime. 200 to 300 times being abducted, that's some deep shit. You really got to dig in with that person and say, wow, what is going on here? And they just get stuck in that loop and they can't unloop themselves. So when the messages leak through, I try to be as thorough as possible with the information that I'm receiving to translate to that client.
Okay. And when you run across stuff you've never seen before, it's that knowingness inside you that kind of just bubbles up. Even though you didn't know it before, you know it now. And that state of knowingness, is because of the practice you've done before, the work that you've done with other clients. It's a massive archive. And what you need to know is there when you need to know it.
Yes. And sometimes I impress myself. I'm like, wow, how did I know that? You know what I mean? But it's all lived experience though. I'm like, wow, so it's sometimes I'm like, oh, I did good. Yeah. And then what I really love, Andrew, is when the clients call you and say, wow, you said this, you helped me with that. I really could work through it. And they have breakthroughs. I love those phone calls because it just makes me know that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a lot of the ones that I work
rewarding.
with. Yeah, and a lot of the ones that I work with that have had multiple abductions, usually they're women and men, and oftentimes they've had several false pregnancies that are actually real pregnancies, where the woman will be pregnant for 3 or 4 weeks, and they'll take the baby out, or they'll put the baby in, and it'll store it in that body for 2 to 3 weeks, and it creates
pull it out.
Then they pull it out, and then they wonder, why do they feel like they have children? Because they've been in the womb. And recently, a lady I was working with, it had been done to her about 600 times.
Wow.
And it's what triggered her into communicating to those children. She had 600 children spread across 15 different planets.
Wow.
And it's what this is what links so much of these off-world interconnective processes, because the off-worlders know about this journey of spirit. They've reached a level of technology and understanding that they can chart the progression of spirit from world to world. They may not be exact at it, but they know how spirit's energies flow, and they can measure it in such a way that they can find an exact match to resolve a unique, weird situation. Like, many of the off-worlders who are in a negative frequency, or somewhat of a negative frequency, they've used genetic engineering in their ancient past to remove their sex organs, okay? So they can no longer have natural offspring, okay? Well, for them to get it back, they need our DNA. But they also don't know how to have swollen feet. They don't know how to raise children, and they still require our genetic wisdom, okay? And that's why you often see a baby in somebody for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, and then it's brought into somebody else who has gained the sex organs back, because the innate wisdom that comes with the baby and comes with the womb that it was in adds to that day state of knowingness.
So they don't need the full, so you're just making me understand this. They don't need the full gestation period like we normally do, like 9 months. 3-4 weeks, and that's enough of the DNA that they can pull it, that they can use
for the situation that the culture is
a baby at full.
Yeah, for the situation where the culture is evolving again with sex organs, it's enough for now, even though they will need to get to full gestation period. Many of the women in those cultures are unable to maintain it for more than a couple weeks. Okay? So because they don't have the chemicals, they don't have all the glands aren't firing right. Where, like, you or me, we choose man or woman each lifetime, and every time I've lived 1,000 lifetimes as a woman, 1,000 lifetimes I've balanced it. Those other cultures don't, and there's no science that's going to fix data from your ancient knowingness and wisdom.
That makes sense.
Have you ever run across a super soldier situation?
Maybe elaborate a little bit. What's a soldier?
So this is somewhat in the conspiracy world. People who believe they were in a secret space program and have 20, 50, or 100 years of memories somewhere else. Yes. They were taken out of their body, lived somewhere else for 100 years, and then brought back into the body at the moment they left. So
yes, I met one person. Yeah, I met one person that did a 20 and back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that like when you go through your journey versus a standard old ghost?
Yeah, see, that's a lot different, because the 20 and back, that 20 and back is 2,000 years or whatever. So there's so many different lifetimes that we have to filter through. So it's not just a regular person. There's so many more layers.
Yep.
And understanding to it. Yeah. And those are long appointments.
Same here. I got quite a few of them.
It takes a while to get through those. Yeah.
Have you ever run into an alien that's a ghost that needed to be crossed over?
Oh yeah, the big reptilian one. Mm-hmm.
No, I have
And
to.
he was spiky and very pointy, so I thought he was gonna poke and hurt, but no, I just pushed him over. So yeah, he was a big dude. But yeah, that's a little daunting because it's like I'm 5'5.5", and that guy is 20, 30 feet tall, so it's very overwhelming at size wise. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen any of the insectoid species?
I have, like, they'll walk by, but I haven't interacted with anybody. I've seen them, but they didn't really talk to me when I came across them, if that makes sense.
Some of them can have a very, very powerful grandmother auric energy around them.
Oh.
And those are the rare few in their culture that keep their cultures bound together. They're, one out of every few million will have that energy in them, and they're highly revered. It's what bonds their cultures together. And many insectoid grandmothers are in human bodies.
Oh.
Yeah? Many, many, many. And it's why they're attracted to our cultures.
Is it the female reproductive all
journey?
of that?
Yes. Yeah, it's the female reproductive journey, as well as the fact that Earth is a triple PhD in the School of Source Disconnection and Source Reconnection, and both being source connected and disconnected at the same time. And it's a unique teaching world of, even when you're source connected, how to retain source connection through growth with the natural world.
Right.
So even in the times where it's the most bleakest, faith does not have to be external. It can be an internal growth and connective process within the wisdom of the DNA itself.
What's it like for these insectoids with their birthing process, Andrew, from their home world?
So they have 5 sexes to start with. Yeah? Well, you got to process. Well, what's more? Well, depending on their lineage, there could be a master egg layer, and that master egg layer is connected to the dream worlds of everyone that uses those eggs. So you could have a male and a female who request an egg. That egg goes through a dreaming journey with the male and the female and the egg-laying queen. The egg then comes to the male and the female, and they will both put their energy into it. Okay, and then it'll go through a 7 to 10 to 20-year gestation process where the whole lineage of the family will be going through the ancestral worlds, finding the right offspring to come into that egg and plan a unique life that will affect the next 2 to 3 generations of the family's style. Example, if the family are engineers or healers or this, they're bringing a child in that's going to continue that lineage, but still have free will to explore the many other things that are out there. Okay? So this is an example of the three unique sexes. And then the 4th and the 5th are what are called direct translation. So you'll have one that can switch between male, female, and egg layer. And then you'll have one that can take the energy of the egg, put it into its heart, and go through rapid transformation, and then directly birth the being via energy, as if it were a complete fetus gone through the exact fullness of egg and seed technology or birth canal technology, with full awareness that it had a pre-life journey. So it's a direct energetic manifestation of the being, and that's how the 5 sexes break down.
And they all work within the same species, Andrew, or is that over multiple species?
No. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of different insectoids, but we'll say of those hundreds or thousands, a good 70% have access to the 5 sexes. That doesn't mean they keep them up. There are some cultures where it's male and female and the energy birther, and then there are others that they share a common queen, which keeps colonies separated by solar systems connected.
Is it a hierarchical process? The energy birth, would that be considered a greater version of birth, or
No, they were born to do that specific, because they immigrate to worlds that are very harsh to their kind.
Oh, I see.
Wow.
Survival.
Well, it's more than survival. It's love. Those beings, they're unique. If that energy birther were to have true love with another species that are not genetically compatible, they can have an offspring that's genetically compatible.
Wow.
So it follows the universal state of love. If the energy birther has true love with another being who obviously their parts don't mix, their genes don't mix, with enough love, they can give direct offspring or hybrids.
Cool.
Full genetic manifestations. And what we're seeing is a tremendous amount of these full genetic manifestations beginning to take over some of the insectoid societies in a very powerful, not negative way, not negative at all. Even though there are negative insectoids out there, it's just for this process, they're beginning to take up positions to be the temporal warriors. Temporal meaning the motions of time that are trying to be conquered by other willpowers who can force a motion of time from an ancient future or an ancient past to make manifest in some linear journey in which they can form a mass spiritual invasion in a linear time and then outbreed a society, even though they're just taking over the existing skin suits there. But the souls that are coming in are outbreeding the natural ones in that area.
So why can't the insectoid DNA itself do that? Why does it require the hybridization?
Because it's following the true love rule. And that's one of their highest things. And it's not an easy thing that a soul can do. It's lots of lifetimes that go to get to it. You know, and it's not a journey that's going to take you down the dark side. Even though there have been many of those insectoids who ventured into the darker realms out of a request to save a lineage. Okay? Out of a request. So they're still doing it for love. For that universal love, that the fact that this child can potentially end a millennia-long conflict between things.
Wow.
Very cool.
And for these insectoids in the birthing process, Andrew, is it a long time they can go into the egg state? Is it, obviously we have our like 10 months, 9 months, whatever it is. Is it a long time for them? They can
7 to 20 years.
Wow.
In the egg state. But the egg can remain an egg without being fertilized from the male or female for thousands of years.
Wow. So is it similar to dragon eggs?
No.
No, okay.
So how does the hive mind work, Andrew? Is it much the same as all the other collective consciousnesses, or is it something different? Because I've had contact with some of these insectoids, and to me they are some of the most charming ones that I've come across.
They share a common dream world that's virtually uninvadable. So that's what binds them to a common culture, that spirit, the spirit of the queen connecting to them. They always have a place that they can go, that even if technological invasion, that they can go to that dream space and be protected. So there, and then you have the heart space grandmother type ones. They're just such a powerful emanation of natural universal source love that again, they can provide a powerful non-zealotous faith that can get you through the harshest of times.
Hi guys.
Gonna have to get some insects.
Sorry to interrupt. I do have an appointment right now. Actually, Nikki and I have a meeting that we're supposed to be in for the UCM stuff. We have, but can we continue this conversation on another broadcast?
Yeah.
Yes, be great to.
Yes.
We've been going for 3 hours, guys.
Yeah.
There's a hot new another show there, Andrew, the Insectoid show.
Oh, it'd be fantastic.
To add to the
Yeah.
Oh,
list.
that's exactly
That's
what I
incredible,
saw. The
wow.
picture you brought up when you asked me about that. That's what I see, like a green stick figure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The mantoids. Very,
Incredible.
very, very,
Yeah,
very, very
mantoids.
fun beings to work with.
Mm.
I see some that look more like ants, a mix between ants and
Those
more
are
of an ant.
the ants are the Peshawar.
The Peshawar.
So they're
Incredible.
one of the Earth's adopted species from other worlds.
No, Annabella, I don't need to sleep. I don't need to sleep. Okay.
David doesn't actually sleep. He hangs upside down and meditates.
I don't need to sleep. I've had enough sleep over the last month.
Wow, what an incredible show, guys. And for everybody watching, please subscribe and drop a comment. We really appreciate those. And we'll go around. How can we get a hold of everyone? We'll start with you, Maty.
Oh,
Hello.
sorry, caught me by
How can we
surprise
get
there,
hold of
mate. Okay, yeah, so I'm on. You can find me on twofeathersmedicine.com. There's a link there for private sessions with me, or there's some light language products there as well, and a course that I've just designed for basic learning to speak light language, a basic course. So yeah, head on to twofeathersmedicine.com and click on my name.
Amy,
Oh,
how
yes.
can people get hold of you?
I'm on earthnouveau.com/gatherings on Wednesdays, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Check it out.
Incredible. And David?
Okay, so you can reach me at info@universalcitizentv.com. We have a webinar series that we're running, including the Kujikiri course, which we're making available for free. We have a webinar series that we're running. I believe this week we are running a webinar on clearing sacred spaces and setting up your altar. We're teaching everybody the basics, and we're teaching the basics for free. Yay!
Yay.
Join the webinar. It'll be
So
fun.
no more excuses to all those listeners. No more excuses. You don't want to be hearing your private sessions anymore.
Don't tell me that you don't have enough money.
Yeah.
All right, join the webinar. It's all over social media. You can come in and learn some just basic, because some people want. We're also going to be putting out a book of useful spells. Andrew has told me to keep all the naughty spells out. So, these are useful spells. Like if you're going to be doing ritualistic work, for those of you who are doing ritualistic work, we have that for you guys. But yeah, join our webinar this weekend, and I pass the ball to Nikki. Nikki?
And I can be found on all UCM sites, and join our community. The UCM community is really growing in leaps and bounds, so we'd love to see you over there. And then if you want to make a personal appointment with me, my website is solutionsforyourself.com. So I really enjoyed coming on today. Thank you for having me, everyone.
God damn, it was a good show.
Yeah, thank you.
Great show. Thanks for coming on,
Laura?
guys.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm at twofeathersmedicine.com. If you'd like me to help you connect to your ancestors, then come and have a session with me. I will also be back next Sunday. I think it comes out at 5 p.m. GMT. My second installment of my prayer service. So, and great. Thanks very much, guys, for coming on tonight, everybody.
Incredible. And Andrew?
You all know who I am. I'm Andrew. You can go to my website, andrewbartzis.com. Take a look at all the different products and fun things we put together with Two Feathers Medicine. And we will be back for our Thursday show, where we will be talking about cannabis and all of its spiritual implications and what it does and doesn't do and everything under the sun for a 420 show.
I feel chilled already. I feel
Yes.
And if anybody would like a psychic surgery session, go on to daletobin.com. I'm also doing psychic surgery training at the start of next month online. So yeah, just go onto the website. And again, remember to subscribe, whatever platform you're on. Drop a comment. We really appreciate the feedback. And again, thank you, everyone. What an honor. What a show. And yeah, good night, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Healing comes in many forms, all the colors aligned. You are free as a dove when you choose, a sovereign state of being.
And allow this product to work with the 7 color chakras in our own energy system.
Meditations can trigger DNA wisdom and memories in light, out creating our limited chemical memories. So sit back, relax, as we take you on a journey of light and color.